across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should we do this? Top of the morning, it is 2 minutes past 6. Happy Saturday, one and all. This is Weekend Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a big show today. Breaking this morning, Nigel Farage has branded Britain's justice system broken after prosecutors announced that two brothers accused of assaulting armed police officers will not face a third trial. What has happened to British justice? Meanwhile, police apologise for arresting a dying teen after killer's wicked racism lie is revealed. Too little, too late. And do you want the good news or the bad news? The good news. If Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, he'll get rid of asylum hotels. He will tear up the government's asylum hotel contracts. That sounds good. The bad news, these illegals will be accommodated in a neighbourhood near you. So what's worse, a migrant hotel or a home of multiple occupancy? Which is the lesser of two evils? I've got a solution at 3 minutes past 6 on a Saturday morning. How's about this one, Dave? Stop the boats! Is that complicated? Oh, I've done Dave's levels there. That's Mark Dolan's solution. Don't worry about houses of multiple occupancy with a lovely, lovely quiet street with a bunch of migrants living next door. Forget about your migrant hotels. Why don't we kill the supply? There's an idea. Stop the boats. But I'm in a constructive mood this morning. I had a 2-hour meeting with Dean Spencer, our executive producer. We were in at 2:30. And we decided that we're going to be constructive today. So therefore, our question is a simple one. How do we save Britain? You tell me, what do we need to do with the economy, with our society, with immigration, with energy, with foreign policy? Let's sort it all out. Let's get it sorted. How do we save Britain? No one is cleverer than you because you live in the real world and you've got a brain and you get up in the morning and you work hard. And if you're retired, then you've paid into the system for years. So actually, you have the answer. You get it. I get it. Engineer Dave gets it. Those that govern us do not. Andy Burnham wants to scrap migrant hotels. Great. And install illegals on your streets. Is that progress? And what about those two airport thugs who will escape prosecution? They walk free and you and I are going to pay their legal costs. Make it make sense. Welcome to Broken Britain. Well, how do we fix it? 0344 499 1000. Answering the phones this morning is an elite level journalist and producer. It is Rory. Lovely guy. You got to call him just to hear that Irish accent. 0344 499 1000. How do we fix Broken Britain? Can Britain be saved? If so, tell me how. Now, you can text the word talk in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note and let's talk. Dean Spencer is our glorious boss. I'm delighted to say he's with us just today. Is that right? Because next week, he's off on his holidays and he's getting plastic surgery in Turkey. And it's the works. He's getting the hair, he's getting the implants, the bum lift. It's all happening. He's taking pills, the whole thing. The guy rattles. When he walks now, he rattles. Dave the engineer, broadcaster himself, by the way, and the man that's made me sound so outstanding this morning. The levels are perfect. We've got a big show for you, and here's the exciting thing. The DNA of talk is in radio. This place used to be called Talk Radio. Let me tell you that in 1998, I was a telephone operator at the original Talk Radio. Look at me now! But I'm so excited because since the beginning of my broadcasting career and working for this magical brand, we've gone from Talk Radio to Talk TV. And if you want to watch the show, head to YouTube and there we are. In fact, Luke, why don't you give the camera a bit of a wobble? Look at that. I mean, the magic of technology. So that's it, folks. If you want to see the show, head over to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop. Let's talk. How do we save broken Britain? How do we fix this country? Is it too late? 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. I got my first message in already. Drill, baby, drill, says Adel. Well, that's put me in a very good mood. So many great guests, by the way. We have a colossus of broadcasting and journalism in the studio in just a few minutes' time. Neil Wallace, former national newspaper editor and one of the most experienced journalists in the country. And by the way, this guy can't be cancelled. He is fearless. He's with us in the studio in just a moment. But shall we start with your front pages? And we begin with the Daily Telegraph. Trump, Hormuz blockade will end. Oil prices fall and Wall Street rallies after agreement to extend ceasefire. Now, a lot of people feel that this war in Iran is a hot mess. I will grant you that I don't think the White House expected Iran to weaponize the Strait of Hormuz. This Middle East politics is very confusing, isn't it, Dean? Because in the last few months, we've had to get up to speed on where these places are, what they mean. I thought, right, before the war in Iran, I thought the Strait of Hormuz was a restaurant in East London, which did the lovely chicken tikka masala and the onion bhaji. Do you like an onion bhaji? I can't lie, I find the onion bhaji a little rich and a little oily. But I love my tikka masala. Anyhow, the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think that Donald anticipated that Iran would weaponize this waterway, which is responsible for the passage of 20% of the world's oil. But it's happened. The bottom line is, I believe that life is a battle between good and evil. I think that's what happens every day when we all get up in the morning, the alarm clock goes off and we go about our day. What we're essentially doing, we're paying the bills, we're trying to survive, provide for our family, have some fun maybe, of course. But I also think we're trying to always defeat evil. And when I look at what's happened in the Middle East, yes, the war in Iran has caused inflationary pressures, because if you impact the supply of oil, it means that commodity becomes more expensive. That is inflation. I get it. But in the end, these Iranians are evil. The Ayatollah was Hitler. Be clear about that. I mean, you won't get that from the woke progressives who are obsessed with Palestine. Well, what about Iran? They've killed at least 40,000 people this year for protesting the regime. So I backed Donald's messy war. It was never going to be elegant, was it, with Donald at the helm? But I think, and here's my prediction, that there will be a deal. It looks like the Strait of Hormuz is going to open literally hours from now. But I think there will be a deal. And what you will have, the legacy of Trump's untidy, messy war, which was far from perfect, will be a weakened Iran with no navy. All their ships are now on the seabed. No air force and a depleted nuclear capacity. That is my prediction. I think it's a messy, untidy, but ultimately successful conflict. Just my opinion. But you see, I'm like, when it comes to current affairs, I'm like Warren Buffett, which is that I buy when the stock is low. And I am an expert, a master of unpopular opinions, a good number of which age quite well. What about this? Barnett, hysterectomy would be a gamble, but a life of pain is no life. Now, this is quite interesting. This is Emma Barnett, who is one of the few good presenters at the BBC. Dave, I wonder whether we should talk to Denny. Does he put a bid in for Emma Barnett to come and join us here? Let me know. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Talk has deep pockets because we're massive now. We make money. We've got so many viewers and listeners. We've got sponsors. We've got adverts, unlike other networks I could mention. Got a frog in my throat. Emma Barnett, she's a talent. She could do, maybe, do we bring back early breakfast and parachute old Emma into that? Anyway, I like her. I think she's a good broadcaster. She's on the BBC. She does a show called The Today Show, with which I'm not familiar because I listen to Jezza Kyle for a bit of common sense and entertainment. A lot of these shows on the BBC are so dry. Obviously, they're horribly woke, incredibly left-wing. But I like her, and I'll tell you for why. Obviously, she's clearly another lefty, no problem. She's one of those Islington chattering classes, no problemo. But what I like about her is, in spite of what are likely to be her leftist personal opinions, she gives every politician hell. She grills them all. So you could be Zach Polanski or Captain Cleavage, as I like to call him. You could be Sir Keir Starmer. You could Kemi Badenoch. You could be Nigel Farage. And she'll give them equal hell. And to me, that's what a great broadcaster is. It's like Andrew Neil. Andrew Neil is right-wing. Andrew Neil is a red-blooded conservative. He's a big fat Tory, is what he is. And yet, when he interviews politicians, it's their worst nightmare, and it doesn't matter whether they're on the left or the right. In fact, Boris Johnson was so afraid of Andrew Neil, he wouldn't grant him an interview in the run-up to the 2019 general election. It could have been. If Andrew Neil had got hold of Boris Johnson, old Bojo might not have had such a landslide, because that's... So I respect these journalists who have opinions, but when they interview someone, in a way, they're quite neutral. Anyway, she's very good, I think. And she's got this awful illness, which is called endometriosis. It's very serious, and it's to do with the womb. It's a family show. Let's not go into details. At 14 minutes past 6, a lot of you will be having your breakfast. So endometriosis is not the topic du jour of someone that is halfway through a bowl of cornflakes. But it's an inflammatory illness, and it's incredibly painful and debilitating and horrific, and she's very brave. She's made a documentary about it, and I do say brave, because this woman, who's a decent broadcaster, has been in severe pain on and off since she was about 11 years of age. So it's a serious thing. And by the way, about 1.5 million women in the country suffer from it. And here's the thing, by the way, this is what annoys me about the NHS, because they have an income of around £160 billion. And actually, they should be looking into endometriosis and epilepsy and cancer and all these other illnesses that are killing us. And what they should be doing less of is managing lifestyle-related illnesses. Type 2 diabetes, all of that, obesity, none of that should exist. Just put a padlock on the fridge. It's not complicated. The Times, poor sleep tied to rise in women's cancer cases, insomnia behind early onset disease. I will say that I do think that as a society, we underestimate the importance of sleep, and we glorify a lack of sleep, don't we? In an ideal world, you would have no alarm clock. Do you know that? In an ideal world, you'd get to bed early enough that you just wake up after around 8 hours, which would hopefully be before the alarm clock would have to ring. Sleep is very important. Daily Mail, an affront to justice. Fury as CPS decides against a retrial of two brothers filmed punching a policeman at Manchester Airport. Yet the officer could end up in the dock. I mean, welcome to Broken Britain. You couldn't make it up, could you? It's utter insanity. These two people, if you look at that footage, they are vile thugs. They're going to walk free. They will not face trial. And we will be likely covering their legal costs, which could run into hundreds of thousands of pounds. This place, this country of ours, this sceptred isle is a mess. So how do we fix it? How do we save Britain? Over to you, 0344 499 1000. One of the country's finest and most fearless journalists who can't be cancelled is live in the studio next.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk, and I'm very excited because a brand new item on the show is called Mark Meets, in which I have a conversation with a compelling public figure with a story to tell. And today, we're going to be joined by ex-cop Colin Sutton, who's made a documentary about one of the worst serial killers in the history of this country, Levi Belfield. That is a very special Mark Meets later this morning. What time, Dean? 8:45. Do not miss it. Live in the studio now, one of the finest journalists in the land, a man that can't be cancelled, Neil Wallace, former executive editor at the News of the World. Hello, Neil.
Good morning, Mark.
And don't you sometimes wish you still had control of a national newspaper, because you would be covering this story of the Manchester 2 not facing trial, and you would probably have it on every page. If it's not an example of our broken justice system, nothing is.
It's literally stunning story. The idea that somehow I mean, look, the British jury system, unfortunately, David Lammy wants to cancel it for many, many cases, but the jury system is one of the beacons of this country, set an example for the world. But it feels as though somehow it has splintered in this case. When you see that footage, you cannot begin to imagine how they found the guys not guilty. You cannot begin to imagine it. And of course, they didn't find him innocent. They didn't find them innocent. They said they couldn't reach a verdict. And it's very rare that you get more than 2 retrials. Very rare.
Correct.
But in this occasion, with such graphic footage, and not least the fact that the victims were actually police, you know, the people whose job, who are there sort of protecting the British public. And that's what they were trying to do in this circumstance, arrest some people who...
And an attack on a cop should be an aggravating factor.
Utterly.
It is even worse than attacking a member of the public.
Yeah, I'm afraid it simply is, because they represent all of us. You know, it's not Mark Dolan you're hitting, it's PC Mark Dolan. It is a member, a representative of our society, of law and order. If that's not precious, I don't know what is.
Most definitely. And so let's take a listen to a statement from the lawyer representing the so-called Manchester 2.
Since the two brothers were charged in 2024, they have been subjected to an orgy of race hate. Meanwhile, politicians such as Nigel Farage and far-right activists have operated with total impunity. Social media posts viewed by millions created a highly prejudicial atmosphere in which a lynch mob mentality that was racist, anti-Muslim, called for deportation, riots, the death penalty and the hanging of the two brothers if they were acquitted. Even their sister and their newborn baby were threatened. The brothers have been accused of being rapists, terrorists, drug dealers, yet they are nothing of the sort. It is a matter of public record that prior to this incident, that both Fahir Amaz and Mohammed Ahmad had never been in trouble before.
Never been in trouble before. They may not have been drug dealers, I don't know, Neil, but what we have is footage of them attacking police officers. They now walk free, and we are likely going to cover their legal costs.
Almost certainly. But one of the things I thought was interesting in that clip of that lawyer there was him declaring that somehow this was anti-Islamic, to suggest, what has that got to do with it? I'm a practicing Christian. Has anybody said you're a practicing Christian, therefore it means X, Y or Z?
Correct.
Where do they bring that element to it? But what you're seeing there is a classic example of the cynicism that lawyer, for purely commercial reasons, for serving his own ends, brings in the issue of Islam. It's just wrong.
He's weaponising race, he's weaponising religion, he's playing games, he's politicising the whole thing.
And that's what I fear may be something to do with how this has turned out. And I think an awful lot of people will feel the same thing. I mean, how did they actually drive this forward? Because if they hadn't been acquitted, those guys would have had to, presumably, pay the costs of that very expensive lawyer, who I think famously drives around very expensive sports cars, as he's shown off before, or it may have been their previous lawyer, I don't know. But the point being, where did race and where did Islam come into this? I think by bringing it in, they are disrespecting both of those things. They are adding an element to this that simply shouldn't be there. And that's my fear, is that there is somehow an element of that has come into this.
Well, I completely agree. And Dean and I have been in touch with a leading solicitor who wishes to stay unnamed. But this is somebody that knows cases like this intimately well, and they've offered me off the record the following, or on the record but anonymously, the following statement. I'm concerned but not surprised that the trial of the brothers accused of attacking police officers at Manchester Airport has collapsed. Failings like these are becoming increasingly common and destroying the public's dwindling faith in the criminal justice system. My legal insider goes on to say, as a criminal defence solicitor of over 20 years, I can definitively say that it was right for these men to be charged. Footage, which has been shared repeatedly on social media, documents every second of the alleged attack, which appears to have included very extreme violence against the officers in question. He goes on to say, one of the brothers already holds a conviction in connection to the assaults, which only makes the collapse of this trial more unjustifiable. He goes on to say, procedurally, It's correct that secondary trials are not typical, as you said, Neil, though I would argue that the public interest in this trial is so high as to justify an exception. The real issue here, he says, is racial factionalism and the refusal of members of one ethnic or religious group to convict one of their own. Having worked in courts across the country, I've seen multiple cases where trials have collapsed or where defendants have been acquitted despite overwhelming evidence. It is no exaggeration to say that this is a critical threat to the survival of our criminal justice system and raises serious questions as to how well integrated our communities actually are.
Well, that sounds going right to the core of it, doesn't it? Because you cannot but think, from the very beginning, you've got to remember, from the very beginning, there were demonstrations within hours, demonstrations about outside police stations by members of the Muslim community claiming that this was ethnically based, that this was religion based, that this was police prosecution of Muslims.
Which is a lie.
It's simply untrue. Well, we've all seen the footage, haven't we? Is
it Islamophobic to arrest burglars and muggers and drug dealers if they are Muslim? Is that Islamophobic?
That appears to be the place we're going. It's Islamophobic to object to a policewoman getting kicked in the face. Are we really at that stage? Do they really think that that's the way to go? That will benefit them? I mean, it's the most extraordinary idea. From the very beginning, this was presented by their lawyers as being racially based, as being Muslim influenced. What happened here? These guys got arrested by the police because they attacked another man in a queue at Starbucks. That's where it kicked off.
Yeah.
And they attacked the guy, the police were called, and the police then went to arrest them. That's what it stemmed from. There's no suggestion this was some demonstration. There was no honourable sort of defence of Islam going on here. It is totally falsely created. But the real tragedy is it has led to this sort of situation where two trials have been unable to come to a verdict. Don't forget, they haven't been cleared, these guys. You know, they were not. One of them was already being convicted of other offences.
Yeah.
But the outstanding one, the one standing, the older one, standing there smirking away to the side of his solicitor, presenting himself as some sort of martyr, which is, of course, inimical to that tradition, that they're presenting themselves as somehow martyrs. They were savages who were kicking women in the face.
And it's time to end this, what I would call race grift, where you weaponize your religion, your culture, or your skin colour. You cannot do that, Neil, because it's at odds with justice.
Yeah, if you or I did it, you can't prosecute me for this because I'm white. You can't prosecute me for this because I'm a Christian. You'd be laughed at, and rightly. You know, the whole idea would be thrown out of court. In fact, the right-on people who seem to dominate the legal system in this country would say it's an aggravating factor, the fact that I was trying to do that. It's simply outrageous.
To be fair to this lawyer representing the Manchester 2, he's an opportunist. What he's doing is capitalising on an opportunity. He's kicking the ball into an open goal because the judiciary now, Neil, is so suffused with woke ideology. This guy is simply making hay. And it's a bit like an accountant will exploit tax loopholes if they are available.
Yeah,
and that's the interesting thing. This lawyer is not breaking the law with these remarks. He's weaponizing what has been a gold-plated opportunity to capitalise on this. And you saw that. Do you remember the guidance? It was around a year ago to judges to give shorter sentences to people of colour. So this is the universe that we now inhabit.
It would two white guys have been cleared of this case? I think we know the answer to that. I think we know, don't we, that if that footage had been made of two guys from Stockport called Neil and James,
Yeah.
then they'd already be serving their time. We wouldn't be sat here having this conversation.
Which is why it has never been a greater priority, Neil, for us to have a colourblind society.
Absolutely must do. Absolutely must do.
And isn't it ironic that that's what the left wanted in the 1970s and 80s?
But the problem that you got was they allowed the ghettoisation of so many parts of Britain. You know, it's one of the things they've realised in Scandinavia. Scandinavia was one of the most earliest woke societies, the early open societies, very right on, welcoming everybody. They were bringing in lots of migrants. What they discovered was that they were creating ghettos that became hotbeds of crime, and they've now changed the law in certain parts of Scandinavia that they've actually introduced a sort of quota system that if an estate of social housing becomes too heavily populated in one direction or the other, they will break it up.
And that's the right thing to do, and it will be called racist, it will be called fascist, it will be called far right, but what it is common sense. And actually it helps these communities because it does a person of colour from a certain ethnicity or religion or culture no favours to be in a ghetto.
No, none whatsoever. They just become, it's a sort of incestuous world where they only look in and stay there, and they're restricting their own opportunities of life.
You're so right, and actually Scandinavia has been a warning to the world. It has been a petri dish, it's been an experiment.
Absolutely.
And it's been a useful one. And the reason why it's been rejected so roundly, the mass immigration in Scandinavia, is because what you're normally dealing with, Neil, is small, homogenous, rich countries. And so they feel the impact of mass immigration more keenly. We're such a big country and we've always been quite racially diverse, so we've sort of swallowed the problem without fully noticing. But if you're living in Denmark, which is 97% white Danish, and then you have mass immigration, you feel it. The contrast is greater, which is why, interestingly, in 2014, I spoke to a Danish journalist. 2014, which is, by my maths, 12 years ago, Denmark had what they call their Farage moment then.
Yeah.
And there is cross-party support now for border control in Denmark. Would you like to know, and including from the left, would you like to know how many asylum cases were processed in Denmark last year?
How many?
57.
If only. If only.
We can but dream. I tell you what, we are living the dream, because in the studio is Neil Wallace, who you all love, and he always goes down a storm. Why wouldn't he? He's one of the world's most respected and experienced journalists, former national newspaper editor. He's been there, he's got the T-shirt, he still looks about 43. How does he do it? He's on something. Lots more to come. How do we save broken Britain? 0344 499 1000. More front pages next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV and on your side.
I was talking about it.
You are listening to Talk, and let me tell you that the wonderful Neil Wallace was telling me about the heat, which I will say a lot of people have been struggling with the heat this week. We don't want to complain because we love the sunshine, but it comes with the humidity.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And even you've been perspiring, because normally you're like Prince Andrew. You don't sweat, do you?
Oh, no.
But you were saying that Cornwall, southwest, how do you find the conditions down there?
Well, I spend quite a lot of time down there. And it's generally cooler.
Yeah.
And because it's a peninsula, particularly where I go, it can be very windy, and that sort of dissipates it slightly. There's always a breeze.
Sounds quite nice.
Yeah,
I tell you what.
it is.
Next heat wave, I'm heading to the southwest. I'll do this show from the beach. By the way, so many voice notes coming in. My thanks to the brilliant Dave, who's our lead engineer here on the show, and he puts these voice notes together. And let's kick off with Wayne.
Morning, Mark. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Nigel is right. Our system is absolutely destroyed. Can you imagine if this was white British people that had attacked Muslim police officers or black police officers being let off? Never would have happened, mate. It really wouldn't have happened. They're just getting away with blue murder. Even the guy that got stabbed, the poor young man that died, if the shoe was on the other foot in reversal, never would have happened, mate. I'm absolutely sick to the back tooth of this. Every single solitary day, there's another thing, and on the receiving end is always the British folk. Oh, I don't know, Mark. I'm done with it all, to be honest, mate. Keep up the good work, Mr. Dolan. You're a top bloke. Have a good weekend.
Wayne, that means a lot. You're very kind to say that. Well, it takes one to know one. How about this from Travelling Boz? Reacting to the news that the Manchester 2 will not face a trial, even though there is footage demonstrating their alleged crimes. Take a listen to Boz.
Morning, Mark, and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. Do you know what? It's absolutely disgusting what's happened about that jury trial with those two brothers. It's for everyone to see what actually happened there. In any other country, I think those two would have been shot reaching out for someone's gun. I don't know what's going on here. Is there tampering involved? Pressure? Why doesn't Starmer stick his nose into this one and say, hang on, this ain't right. This needs to be looked at properly. But he won't, because he can't harm his votes for the future. Absolutely shocking. We know exactly what would happen if they were two football hooligans. Have a good show.
Thank you, Boz. That was exactly the point that Neil was making. If they were called Bob and Simon and they were white, they're going down. And by the way, rightly so.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to go back to a world, Neil, where violent thugs faced prosecution and were jailed.
Just on the facts. Just on the facts. We were talking earlier during the break about how that lawyer there trots out just about every woke cliche there is to attack the attempt to convict this guy. He called it anti-Muslim. He called it racist. He also said that those who are calling for this prosecution are the far right. Have you noticed the way that the left have now weaponised the words far right to criticise anybody who doesn't immediately jump on their bandwagon, who doesn't immediately sign up to the idea that that you get special privileges if you're left of centre, that anybody who dares to be in the centre or right of centre is far right, and therefore are cancelled, are dismissed, are thrown away. Their views don't matter. Those two chaps we've just had on now, far right, they must be. They don't agree with us.
And it's a way of shutting people down, isn't it?
Silencing them. Silencing a perfectly legitimate viewpoint. And the danger of that is that those two guys who we've just heard become more and more marginalised. They're not listened to. The people who run the establishment, who at that woke centre, are just saying, don't listen to them, marginalise them, they don't matter. Starmer thinks those two guys are completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Which is a disgrace, which is why, of course, he can't run the country, because he has no concept that those guys have any kind of legitimate voice. They're far right.
You're absolutely right. I completely agree. John in Poole, good morning, Mark, and hello, Neil. This is a shocking disgrace. Mark, even a deaf and dumb person with a degree of common sense can tell that those two characters were guilty of assault. If they were ordinary white British people, they would be in jail already, and everyone knows this. These so-called lawyers have now created something that is going to explode. Watch this space. Dave in Aberdeen, good morning, Mark, and hello, Neil. Once again, silence from Starmer. Regarding the Manchester scum, you can hear the cries of far right if the boot was on the other foot. Why can't the police bring private prosecutions against the two people in Manchester? Well, that's a very, very smart point. Maggie says, hello, Mark and Neil. I said 15 years ago that PC, or political correctness, which has turned into woke, will kill this country off. It turns out I'm right. Just look at the Manchester trial. Henry Novak's death, to name but a few. This race baiting now has to stop. It's gone a step way too far this time. I feel we're living the Biden years here in the UK. Oh, and a soft apology ain't cutting it anymore. Mick says, Mark, will Lammy use the Manchester airport trial as an example to stop jury trials? I bet not. Good point, Mick. Well, we now get to another troubling story which has overlap with the one we've just been discussing, Neil. The tragic case of Henry Novak, who was a young man that was stabbed. The police arrive. His murderer tells the police that the lad was racist to him. They then cuff a man who is bleeding out of his own body, who tells officers, I've been stabbed, I can't breathe. The officers, they then say, I don't think so, and the boy is no longer with us. This is very, very tragic. My viewers and listeners are so angry about this. What does this story tell us about modern Britain, Neil?
Well, what is scary about that is the assumption by the officers,
right,
that the first part must be true, and that the second part they were just going to ignore.
Which is not their job to make that judgment call.
Absolutely not. They're supposed to go there as a completely independent, clear-thinking people who to assess a situation and take control of it. They went there with the mindset, sadly, brainwashed into them, instructed into them, frankly, by their superiors, that if the word racism comes into it, that's what must be tackled first.
And it seems they take that more seriously as a policing culture than burglary, than stabbings, than rape, than murder. It seems to be the big focus.
Well, it seems to be an obsession. When you calculate, you look at a situation, you take various things into calculation, like age. You'd assess how old people are and how they're reacting. You would take into account the fact that they're men or women, so on and so forth.
Sure.
Well, now, plainly, race is a major, and has been for a long time, factor in assessing the truth of a situation. And this poor lad, Henry Novak, died. And how is it possible that if they simply checked him for his injuries first, rather than put handcuffs on him first, that he may still be alive today? That's what's really scary.
So blinded by woke ideology were those officers that he says, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed, and they don't check.
Exactly. They've arrived there, they've seen a Sikh who tells them one story, and he has one colour of skin, and this guy, who is plainly injured, he's the guy who's been flattened. They immediately assume that he must be in the wrong. And that comes from the top. That comes from their training. That comes from their superiors who tell them how to approach situations. And that's where we have the problem.
And you mentioned the superiors. You're so right about that, because an ex-cop messaged me on the show yesterday saying that when cops go into the line of fire, as it were, metaphorically, all they're thinking about is what the superiors will think based upon their actions. Will this get me in trouble with my boss back at the station?
Yeah.
And will I be thrown under the bus by a superior because of some racist episode? And that is the focus. And of course, it goes beyond that. It's the police training college as well, where it's all on a whiteboard, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. That is the culture, I'm afraid.
It's crazy. Let's take a listen to Detective Chief Robert France on the Henry Novak murder.
I am deeply sorry that Henry could not be saved. I'm sorry that in the moments before he lost consciousness, he had been handcuffed and arrested. The facts heard in court should leave no doubt in anyone's mind who was lying to officers that night and why we didn't immediately understand what had happened. During the 999 call, when officers first arrived at the scene, and even when Henry's condition was deteriorating quickly, his killer continued to divert the blame, obstruct our inquiries, and never admit the serious harm which had been done.
Well, one accepts the apology, one acknowledges it, but this won't wash with the public, will it?
The boy's dead. You know, I mean, it won't wash with the public, no, but most of all, it's not washing with Henry Novak, is it? The boy is dead. And the thing that always drives me nuts about this is no one ever carries the can, do they? No one. When was the last time we heard of a police officer, someone in authority, actually carrying the can for bad decisions that harmed ordinary people? I mean, at the moment, we've got this extraordinary by-election going on in Makerfield, where one of the biggest Don't Look This Way merchants, Andy Burnham, who completely, for years, turned his back on the whole grooming scandal that was going on in the Northwest, just completely tried to brush it under the carpet, to send it away, right? And it was always everybody else's fault. Who carries the can? Answer, no one carries the can.
You've nailed it. I couldn't put it better myself. Neil Wallace with me live in the studio, former executive editor of the News of the World, one of the most experienced figures from Fleet Street, and now, of course, commentator and broadcaster. Well, that Makerfield by-election is happening, and here are the candidates. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats; Count Binface Party; Andy Burnham, Labour; Dan Clark, Libertarian; John Dyer, Independent; Ed Gemmell, Climate Party; Paul Gould, Independent; Howling Loud Hope, official Monster Raving Loony Party; Robert Kenyon, Reform UK; Robert Pownall, Independent; Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain; Sarah Wakefield, Green Party; Peter Ward, Rejoin EU; and Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. More to come. Is British justice dead? This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? but a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is British policing and justice broken, and what do we do about it? 6:52, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. With me in the studio, the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. Hi, Mark, says Mike in Southampton. What about mentioning Southampton's Sikh MP, who has said virtually nothing about Henry? Well, Mike, thank you for that. And clearly you're feeling this tragedy more keenly than anyone else because you're in Manchester. And I took a voice note from someone in Manchester and they said that the city is in uproar over this, and rightly so. Hello, Mark, and hello, Neil. This is Chris in Chichester. Listening to you both, it makes it very clear to me that this country is totally screwed. Too late to drag it back. I, like millions of British people, are fuming. We're not far right, just right, which really annoys the leftist, woke, tolerant idiots. I'm fed up with being tolerant. If I could leave, I would. This from an unnamed texter. Oh, it's Margaret. Good morning, Mark. Margaret here. I'm angry about what's happening to my once beautiful country. We have two-tier law. We allow our Jewish citizens to be terrorised whilst allowing weekly hate marches through our streets. We allow our children to be indoctrinated in our schools who are taught to be ashamed of our history. We kowtow to immigrants who unlawfully break into our country and give them every benefit going, while we disregard the plight of our veterans who are sleeping rough on our streets, and allow millions of people who should be contributing to sit on their backsides and receive more money by way of benefits than people who are working all the hours that God sends to look after their families. When is enough going to be enough? Well, I really appreciate that considered message, Margaret. And Neil, that's the point. When is enough enough? When do the public wake up to this?
Well, I think potentially what you're seeing is now, to a certain extent, isn't it? What happens at Makerfield? You know, when you've got the King of the North, the people that the left want to be our next Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, standing there, just a total carpetbagger. He doesn't live in Makerfield. He lives nearby in quite a nice leafy suburb, actually. But he's now the working class hero who's going into Makerfield and saying, elect me. On the other hand, you have the forces of reform mobilising to try to beat them. Now, this is a very interesting, significant moment. I think it's really unfortunate that Farage and Rupert Lowe have fallen out and they're in separate sides of an argument now. But you do see the rise of reform is basically the rise of the people who are saying enough. We've had enough. And that is crystallising. Whether the ruling class, whether the political class, you know, all those sipping their cappuccinos in little cafes in North London, realise that, I don't know. That's a different thing.
Yes, this feels, doesn't it? Actually, both these awful stories, the Manchester 2 and Henry Novak, they feel like tentpole events, like historic moments. Perhaps, you know, the US had George Floyd. You know, it feels like a moment. And I've got another story for you that never goes away. It's an oldie but a goldie. The Batley school teacher who showed an image of the Prophet Muhammad as part of an educational tool in a media studies lesson and is still on the run, has lost his career, his family aren't safe, and that shouldn't be happening in a free society. So all three of those stories demonstrate the nature of the problem.
The Batley one in particular is such a shocking, shocking indictment of the left of centre in this country. Not just the far left, not just the wokies.
No.
The left as a whole.
Even the centrist dads own this, don't they?
Yeah, they've completely turned their back on this man and his family. And he wasn't doing anything but actually trying to make an educational point. This wasn't a political statement he was making. It wasn't a religious comment he was making. It was simply he was demonstrating a point, as he had done before, actually, as there had been in that school before. But the headmaster, who turned on him, the headmaster just walked away and let this guy swing. The governors of that school, utter disgrace. They let the guy swing. They just left him. And he, ever since, has been, as you say, effectively on the run. What do his kids think? They've changed their names. How utterly appalling can you get? And you get these two stories galloping along and coming into the headline. But, you know, where are all our great leaders screaming about the Henry Novak case? You know, why isn't Keir Starmer taking his knee for Henry Novak? Why isn't Sadiq Khan, who was a nauseating man, but why isn't he standing up and saying this must never happen in our society again? The racism was being weaponised. The police in this situation so broke our police system that they went along with it and cared more about an allegation of racism than they did a guy bleeding to death in front of them.
This lad, Henry, the Manchester 2, Batley, all have one thing in common: race, skin colour, religion, leveraged to legal effect. And that's a dangerous place to be. The candidates for Makerfield: Jake Austin, Lib Dem, Count Binface Party; Andy Burnham, Labour; Dan Clark, Libertarian; John Dyer, Independent; Ed Gemmell, Climate; Paul Gould, Independent; Howling Lord Hope, Official Monster Raving Loony Party; Robert Kenyon, Reform UK; Robert Pownall, Independent; Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain; Sarah Wakefield, Green Party; Peter Ward, Rejoin EU; Michael Winstanley, Conservative Party. I have to do that quite often. I might put it to music at some point. I might sing it. Michael Winstanley, Conservatives. That's not to give him any favour. They're all marvellous. Why can't we vote for all of them? Folks, a big, big hour to come. What do we do about our broken justice system? Is British policing broken as well? Do you trust any of it? 0344 499 1000. Neil Wallace stays with us and a special star guest live in the studio. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 7. I'm told this is the last day of the heat wave. Let's enjoy it. We've got a scorcher of a show for you this morning. Top of the morning. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. Whatever you're up to, lovely to have your company. You may be at the tail end of a night shift, in which case I salute your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the great British economy. Perhaps you're still slumbering in bed. Maybe you got the kettle on. If so, let's get a brew. Mine, milk, sugar, lots of milk, and tea. Oh, my goodness. And breaking this morning, Nigel Farage has branded Britain's justice system broken after prosecutors announced that two brothers accused of assaulting armed police officers will not face a third trial. Meanwhile, police apologise for arresting a dying teen after his murderer claimed that he was guilty of racism. So my question to you this morning is a simple one. Are British policing and justice broken? And if so, how do we fix it? 0344 499 1000. Do you still have confidence in our police? Do you have confidence in the courts? Let me know. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And we kick off with a rather compelling story from the man who would be our next Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, who is the Mayor of Greater Manchester. If he were to become Prime Minister, he would scrap asylum hotels altogether, tearing up the contracts, and instead oblige local authorities to accommodate illegals. Will this work? Is this the answer, or is this the shifting around of deck chairs on the Titanic? Let's get the views of Elliot Keck, a Conservative councillor, and Neil Wallace, former executive editor of the News of the World. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the show. Elliot, what's your instant reaction to this suggested policy?
Until we build custom-made detention centres for people who are here illegally and then ultimately remove them, of course we don't actually have a truly viable solution. The public aren't going to be happy with anything we have. These hotels are obviously extraordinarily expensive. At least they are custom-built spaces for large groups of people.
With all these folk in one place.
Exactly, with all these folk in one place. Whereas the second you're distributing them amongst HMOs, you're converting otherwise perfectly good housing for local residents into, you know, accommodation for 6, 7, 8, who knows how many migrants packed in there like sardines. Public are going to hate that. Local neighbourhoods are going to hate that. I think probably until we build custom-built detention centres, which is what I want to hear more of from someone like Andy Burnham and the government, I think hotels probably are preferable, in my view, to HMOs embedded within the community.
Well, that's right. Neil, be careful what you wish for. The public are rightly furious about hotel accommodation for asylum seekers. As Elliot said, it's eye-wateringly expensive. It's a blight on communities. You're often losing a big social hub, a building suffused with memories, births, christenings, funerals. However, the alternative could be worse.
How are local authorities supposed to cope with this? You know, if you've got hundreds upon hundreds of migrants, there is near me a small migrant hotel where I live in London, and at least you know, and it's there. What you do see, this is in West London, in Hammersmith, Shepherd's Bush area. And what about all the young people? Where are they going to live? You know, I've got a 30-year-old son, and if he was seeking to develop a life in Shepherd's Bush or whatever, where's he going to find accommodation? If it's filled, as it will be, because, you know, what happens is local authorities, by definition, simply churn out the mill. They simply do what they're told. They don't fix the potholes in the road, but they will, if it says in statute, house an illegal migrant in the house down the road. My son isn't going into that house, then, is he? Because they'll put the migrants there because it says it on the law book. Andy Burnham says we've got to house it, so we're going to do it. And my son or the young woman down the road, where's she going to go? Where do they start their lives if any of these vacant council properties, the public sector housing, if it's first come, first served, the first come are the migrants, and they will be housed there. It won't be young Janice. It won't be young Sam. Where are the people looked after who actually live here, whose lives are here, whose families are here for generations? Where are they looked after? When can they come first? When can they come first?
Elliot.
Yeah, listen, I agree with all of that. I mean, speaking as a councillor, we have a statutory duty to house various types of people if they arrive in the council area, homeless people, refugees, asylum seekers, etc. We don't have a statutory duty to house students and other people. So, as you were saying, this is a national problem, and it needs a. And
there were thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, Brits, on a waiting list for housing.
Exactly, yeah. It's a national problem and it needs a national solution.
But they're on a waiting list, but jumping the queue are illegals.
And unfortunately that's
amazing.
That's
Isn't that wonderful? Is that enrichment or something? What is that? Is that good for us?
I'm a councillor in Westminster, but it's a problem right across the country that, again, this is a problem placed on local authorities by central government. We need a central government solution, and that means detaining and deporting people who shouldn't be here, and ideally detaining them somewhere away from communities, not in hotels. I mean, but listen, at the moment, that's probably one of the best options we've got.
The least bad option.
As you said, hotels takes away really, really important community places.
So illegal.
People get married in hotels, birthdays, Christmas, these are
part of the economy as well.
Huge parts of the economy that suddenly we're wiping away for people that are going to never provide any real economic benefit to the UK, only going to drain the resources of the UK in the case of most illegal migrants. So listen, this needs a national policy solution, I'm afraid, but it's not forthcoming from either Andy Burnham or Keir Starmer. I think it is forthcoming from my leader, Kemi Badenoch, and the Conservative Party, but that's just my view.
And don't forget, Andy Burnham, aspiring to be our next Prime Minister, until a few weeks ago, when he U-turned, has been an advocate for migrants being automatically entitled to claim benefits.
Yeah.
Janice down the road isn't, Sam down the road isn't, but migrants who come here illegally, breaking the law to get here, until a few weeks ago, I don't know why he changed his mind, but he did, Andy Burnham said they should be automatically entitled to benefits.
And it tells you the very nature of the left and how they've abandoned the working class, Elliot, if they will prioritise illegal immigrants over the local population, over the local poor people in this country.
Well, I think the reality with the left now, at least the modern left in today's Britain, is they don't identify with the British nation, they identify with the global nation. So they identify with the global poor far more than the British poor. They would argue that people coming from war-torn countries originally are in a worse condition and a worse state.
And because they're of colour, they're actually higher up the old empathy scale.
And they've forgotten that actually it's the British people that elect them. It's the British people that pay the taxes to fund, firstly, the salaries of those MPs, but also the whole public services. And they've come completely unmoored from that basic principle of democracy, that you represent the people that elect you and you spend the money that the people that elect you contribute, and as a result you should always put their interests first. And I'm afraid the biggest problem that we have in our political system is that the modern left, as opposed to the old left, which was very rooted in communities and within the British nation, the British people, they've completely forgotten that fact.
Most definitely. Well, it's the North London chattering classes that have taken over the left, haven't they, culturally and in terms of leadership. But we can't blame Labour exclusively for this crisis, can we? We've had the boats now for a couple of decades. So do you feel that the Conservatives have a case to answer for this one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the first things that Kemi did when she became leader was apologise for immigration, and it was a massive cock-up, obviously. I mean, we are now seeing the fruits of James Cleverly's reforms and the Conservative Party's reforms in the last government, the changes to, in particular, visa systems and salary thresholds is the reason why net migration has now plummeted. Labour are claiming credit for it, but it was a Conservative policy.
And Rishi Sunak led that charge.
Way too late. I mean, that should have been done years and years and years ago.
Why were the Conservatives asleep at the wheel regarding this issue for 15 years?
Listen, on the point about North London chattering classes, I think there were too many people in the Conservative Party that were worried about what their friends would say at dinner parties and didn't think about what the public thought of them. And the public have always been clear at every single election. They want net migration to come down. Yes, your Guardian reading mates that you go to dinner parties at may not say that, but your public and your electorate do. And we forgot that fact. We had other challenges. Obviously, there was COVID, there was Ukraine, Brexit, and all the rest of it. But nevertheless, we massively took our eye off the ball on immigration. It is, I think, the biggest policy failure, certainly of the last Conservative government, and it's one that we need to get right next time.
Neil, what do you think happened to the Tories, given they allowed the boats to keep coming for so many years in power?
Well, one of the architects of this, of course, is Boris Johnson. The Boris wave was what unleashed it upon us, because the thing about Boris Johnson was he could be very charismatic, but he was a man who liked an easy, simplistic solution, and he just grabbed any easy solution. There was a dearth of people he believed who were needed for pretty much the low level of working in this country. So he says, bring them all in. Yeah. Let them in. Easy solution. There we go.
Yeah. He did what he was told by civil servants and pen pushers, didn't he? Just as he folded to Sage during COVID.
Yeah, he completely always took the easy option. Always. And this was presented to him.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm afraid. I mean, I think there was also possibly a slight ingrained sense of British superiority in that. I think Conservatives and some British people felt like we uniquely amongst human societies could find a way to integrate large levels of very high levels of migration. That every other society that it happened, it caused huge problems, but that we uniquely would be the ones that could crack that nut and integrate them successfully. And unsurprisingly, it's failed, like it does fail everywhere. You need low levels of managed migration of relatively culturally similar people. Much beyond that, and you start to cause serious problems.
Do you understand and appreciate why a lot of my viewers and listeners just don't trust the Conservatives on this anymore?
Oh, completely, yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know a single Conservative that has stayed in the party like me, that has run for office, that hasn't, wrestled with these challenges. But listen, I think particular Kemi, but also others on the shadow. I mean, we want to talk about justice, and I know you've been talking a lot about problems in policing and the justice system. I mean, I would ask listeners if they really think that there's anyone better in the country at tackling these problems than Nick Timothy, the current Shadow Justice Secretary.
Who's been very, very brave, particularly on these cultural issues.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think that's true.
But it's the same with Kemi Badenoch again. She's shown increasingly formidable, strong leadership with a really detailed policy programme that isn't falling apart every time it's pressed, like is the case with, I'm afraid, Reform's policy programme at the moment. So, listen, I mean, we have an enormous task to win back the British people's trust, because we don't, at the moment, deserve it. But I think over the next couple of years we can win it back, and I'm confident we will.
I think when you think about these things, or talk about these things, you've got this nightmare of a huge Labour majority, and you've got to realise that the Labour, despite that majority in the House of Commons, they didn't win the last election. The Tories lost it, and what you're seeing now is the impact of that still hanging around. And I completely agree. I think that Kemi Badenoch, from a bit of a shaky start, is putting herself back there as a credible leader.
People like Kemi, don't they?
They do.
I think people like Kemi.
Yeah. And
even folk that have had it with the Tories, they quite like Kemi.
Yes, and I think the surveys are all showing that. So, but what you now have is this dilemma of a powerless Prime Minister who's openly being eaten alive by his own party members, his own MPs, and yet actually getting that back on track is still a Herculean task.
Now, Neil, we know that you've got fried eggs and sausages waiting for you at your little cafe.
So true.
2 slices of white toast with butter and a probably big strong cup of tea, I would have thought.
Coffee, I'm afraid.
Glad to hear it. Could you delay that for a few minutes so you can stick with Elliot, because the audience are loving this?
Do I get an extra sausage?
I'll give you a banger. A careful family show. Brilliant stuff. Delighted to be in the company of Elliot Keck, a brand new star on Talk Breakfast, Conservative councillor, first of many appearances, I've got no doubt. Neil Wallace, Fleet Street legend. Are British policing and justice broken? How do we fix it? Your calls next.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, let me tell you that the voice notes are pouring in. Engineer Davis told me that there are 20 in the system waiting to be processed, so cannot wait to get to your views very, very shortly indeed. So many texts coming in. I've got to say, this is the most interaction I've seen since I returned to the home of common sense. Christina says, hi, Mark. Kemi might be a strong leader and wants to come out of the ECHR, but it's her backbenchers who will stop her sorting out illegal immigration. Only Reform UK will do what they say. Well, let's talk now about 2 stories that bring into question the integrity of British justice and policing. The Manchester 2 men pictured in viral videos attacking police officers. There will be no third trial. They walk free and we will likely cover their legal costs. Meanwhile, a dying teenager is handcuffed because his murderer told cops that he'd made a racist remark. So are British policing and justice broken? How do we fix these issues. Elliot Keck is a Conservative councillor, and Elliot, there are sort of parallels between these two stories, aren't there? Race, culture, religion being weaponised against justice.
Yeah, when the Manchester airport story first popped up, I got a little news alert. I thought, there must have been a separate attack at Manchester airport, because the idea that the two individuals that we're talking about here wouldn't get sentenced when the video evidence is so unambiguously clear, it's just sort of draw on the floor moment. And that, along with the killing of Henry Novak, I think his name was. Correct. That feels like a really crystallising moment in our analysis and understanding of the justice system. Hopefully a little bit like the Stephen Lawrence case was in the late 1990s.
George Floyd in America.
Yeah, I think it needs to affect a completely radical transformation in our justice system and in our police system. Because listen, on the one side of it, clearly there's a big problem with the police in the fact that they turned up to an incident and automatically believed the murderer and not the murdered. That's a very, very clear problem. But also you can see from the police's point of view why they are often unwilling to intervene when they do intervene and they get their heads kicked in, the people that do it aren't then sentenced. So the fact that both systems are broken is sort of reinforcing each other at the moment. And so it's going to need both elements to be looked at and completely radically reformed.
And British policing and the British judicial system require the confidence of the British public, and both of those now have been dented.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've spent decades propelling the mantle of diversity above everything else within justice and policing. And yet I still think if you asked ethnic minority communities, do you trust the police and do you trust the justice system, they would probably say no. And the reason why is actually most people just want to see an effective, speedy, efficient justice system, and a police that engage and active and arresting wrongdoers, and that's ultimately what they want to see. They don't care about all of the the woke mumbo jumbo that the left likes to attach to it. They just want to see it to be effective and efficient, and it hasn't been for decades. And so we've been focusing almost exclusively on certain groups and certain communities, and yet we still haven't won the trust of those communities, because those communities want the same thing broadly, most of them, as everybody wants, which is an efficient, fair and just system.
Most definitely. I mean, that's the problem, and that's the irony, isn't it, Neil, that ethnic communities often haven't had confidence in British policing or the judicial system. Well, on this occasion, skin colour, race and ethnicity have been leveraged against the path of justice.
Yeah, it's been turned on its head, hasn't it? It's turned on its head. If you're a normal citizen, a working class guy based in a town up in the northwest, say, then you do no longer have confidence if you call the police that you're going to get straightforward action to look after your interests. Everything, everywhere, appears to be suffused with this idea you have to take into account whether it's race, whether it's religion, whatever it is, has to become part of the calculation. And that is fatally undermining to the idea of the traditional idea of a British justice system.
Which should be colour-blind.
Of course it should be colour-blind. It should be religion-blind. It should be sex-blind. It needs to be all of these things. But I'm afraid that, and this comes hugely from the top, incidentally, those guys who believed the racism allegation and put that first, they didn't come up with that off their own bat. They were simply enacting what they have been told, how they've been told to interact with the community. It wasn't their idea.
Yeah.
And they're probably the ones who eventually, if anybody ever does take the rap, which very rarely happens, frankly, the problem is they've been taught that. They've been ordered to do that. It isn't the ordinary Bobby who knocks on the door to complain about your Twitter posts that has made this decision themselves. That comes from up top.
Yeah.
But those people are still in their roles, setting those sort of rules and judgments. Who on earth they think they're serving is beyond me.
Why wasn't Henry Novak believed by the police when he said, "I can't breathe"? and I've been stabbed. Why was the response from the police officer, I don't think so?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really worth zooming in on this case. I mean, I think it was the chief superintendent gave this statement that they put out, sort of video statement, and he said that, you know, the police officers were blameless and that they were lied to and that they were deceived. However, in order to be lied to and deceived, you have to believe somebody. And when police are turning up to a case, when police are turning up to an incident, they should be turning up without prejudice, and they should be assessing the facts as they appear when you're there. And if someone is lying on the floor claiming they've been stabbed, you should treat that with arguably much, much more weight than the person saying that person has been racist to me. Because if the guy saying that person has been racist to me is correct, you can still deal with it after checking if he's been stabbed first. But if you get it the wrong way round, you end up with a dead 17-year-old or 18-year-old. I can't remember his 18-year-old, and you know, the police claimed that there was no way he could have been saved anyway. But I mean,
oh, brilliant.
Exactly. Whether or not that's true, if the situation was that he could have been saved, we just don't know that. They really would have blood on their hands. And obviously, as Neil said, it is about the culture. It must be endemic. If the police are turning up to an incident and believing automatically one person over another, and that's essentially, let's be honest, based on their race and their religion, that is clearly a cultural problem within the police. It must be trained. It must have entered their subconscious.
That's exactly right. It probably starts at community college.
Exactly.
Zarina says police forces operate under a culture of fear. It's this issue, the primacy of racism as all of the crimes in this country. Unfortunately, there's a pattern here where we are provably less safe because of an obsession with skin colour rather than criminal acts, Elliot. And if you look at Salman Abedi, this is a bearded man of Middle Eastern ethnicity who goes to an Ariana Grande concert. Don't wish to be prejudicial, but a bearded Arab-looking man with a big backpack is not a typical participant in an Ariana Grande concert. Well, that's fine. There are outliers. But the security guard at the Manchester Arena felt unable to ask this guy what he was up to for fear of being called racist. The consequence, 20 dead people.
Yeah.
You've got Axel Rudikabana, whose former head teacher flagged up that this was a problematic pupil, potentially dangerous. Valdo Calacane. This is a guy that wasn't detained in a psychiatric unit because there are too many black men under such circumstances.
Which was quite literally the ruling that the doctors made, that it would contribute negatively to admission rates to psychiatric units of different races.
That's 3 dead people.
Yeah.
So
and that's just top of our heads,
I've just got 20, without being flippant, but sometimes to make a point you have to be. That's 26 dead people.
And that's just off the top of our heads. There'll be many more cases.
Bingo. And it goes on, and it's a tragedy. And of course, maybe I could add another 250,000 victims, and that would be the grooming gangs.
Yeah.
Because again, a blind eye was deployed when it came to the grooming gangs, ongoing, by the way, of course. And you'd have a scenario, and I'll be mentioning this, Elliot, in a Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. You'd have a flat occupied by 10, 12, 15 men and a vulnerable young girl, underage. And the cops are arresting the girl, calling her drunk, calling her a prostitute. I'm no expert on the law, right? I'm not exactly Kavanagh QC, but it's my understanding that a 13-year-old girl cannot be a prostitute.
Yeah.
Again, that's an example of the selective moral blindness of our British police.
Yeah, and it's nothing.
And not because they're evil people.
No,
it's because they are caught up in this ideology.
Yeah. Most people in any workforce are basically decent people trying to do the right thing. You have a small number of heroes, genuine heroes, and a small number of awful people. But most people simply adapt to the culture that they're in. And if the culture within an organisation is completely broken, most people will exhibit that. There'll be a small number who will always be heroes and always do the right thing, no matter what personal cost. And there are a few people in the police like that, and they are incredible people.
Sure.
But in order to rely on the vast majority who are just trying to get through the day and keep food on the table for their loved ones, we have to make sure that the culture is right. And unfortunately, the culture in the British police is completely broken. And that's been shown for decades and been shown in the examples that you've listed.
And what needs to happen, Elliot, because obviously we want solutions, we have to eliminate political correctness from our public institutions.
Absolutely, take away the public sector equality duty. Yeah.
Right, have cops go after the bad guys, do stop and search, things like that.
Yeah, we should be removing race, religion and all of these things as things that the police need to worry about or care about in terms of addressing disparities. The police's role is not to address disparities in society. That is for other institutions to be focusing on. The police should be completely colour, race, ethnicity blind and focus solely on who is most likely to be committing a crime at any particular moment, or who is suspected of committing a crime at any particular moment, and be treating them and using the necessary force in order to arrest them and stop them.
What a great answer. Neil, you're a titan of Fleet Street. Does it mystify you? Is it mind-boggling for you, having reported on the politics of this country for decades, how things have changed and seemingly in the wrong direction?
It's sort of quite depressing, really, because this side of it that Elliot rightly spotlights is so oppressive, and the problem is it's infectious. These things are infectious. Once you get into a system, that idea that certain things come first, ethnicity, religion, whatever it is.
Gender, of course, will be another one, or gender identity.
Well, fortunately, gender identity has sort of slightly fallen off the top of the crime list, hasn't it, at the moment, the obsession with it, thankfully, because of that Supreme Court ruling. That I only read this morning that there's a church is deliberately defying that Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, I saw that.
By saying all women are welcome here to use their toilets, and women, if they're worried, they can ask for someone to accompany them to keep them safe, a minder. What on earth is going on? And it's just nuts. But it is without question that there is the sort of feeling of abandonment almost by our communities, that they don't feel that they matter, that those I mean, it makes me laugh, the Labour Party talking about the working class. This Labour Party has no connection with the working class I grew up with on a council estate in Lincolnshire. The values of places like that suffuse so much of the north, that suffuse genuine working class areas, right, are completely been tossed aside by the Labour Party that claims to represent them, and it's run, and their values are being set by people like Starmer, sitting there in North London drinking his cappuccino, chatting to his mates about the latest Arsenal report in the back page of The Guardian, and that is what absolutely riddles society, that society.
You've summed it up. Neil, what a fantastic contribution this morning. Can't wait to have you back in the studio. You've earned those fried eggs and sausages, 2 slices of toast and a coffee, and not a cappuccino, I hope.
Not a cappuccino.
Just a real traditional coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, I used to work in a cafe in Edinburgh, and there was a lady used to come, and I'd say, how do you like your coffee? Brown. I want a brown coffee. And what she meant, I don't know, splash of milk. That is it. Elliot, you've got to come back soon. We really enjoyed your company. What a great first appearance on Talk Breakfast from Elliot Keck, Conservative councillor. What do you think about this, folks? Are British policing and justice broken? How do we fix it? Your call's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So many voice notes coming in. I've got to say that Dave the engineer doing a great job. We've now got over 30 voice notes coming in. I suspect that figure will double. I'm going to get to your calls in a moment. Here's a voice note from Dallas on the Manchester 2.
Morning, Mark. This is Dallas out in Botswana. Just commenting on the Manchester 2, as we might call them. There's an expression in English which says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, now it would seem that 1,000 words from an oily, slimy solicitor is worth far more than anything you can see with your own eyes. So I'm afraid we're going to have to scrap that proverb. What a disgusting miscarriage of justice. I'm speechless. But I am enjoying the show, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.
Dallas, thank you for that. It is a disgusting miscarriage of justice. Here's Vinny.
Hey, Mark, trial by jury is great. You should always have it. But who was on the jury? Great show, mate. Vinny.
Oh, Vinny, you're right about that. There is a concern that juries that have an ethnic makeup may well allow someone guilty of a crime to walk free if they are from the same background. It happened in the United States with O.J. Simpson, who was quite clearly a murderer. Ian's in Cambridge. Good morning, Ian. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Lovely that you've called. We've got a full switchboard. People feel very strongly about this, particularly at the moment with this developing story, Manchester Airport. It's not going to go to trial, and we will probably pay the legal costs of these thugs.
Well, let's put it this way. Had this been in America, these two thugs would have been shot and probably be dead. And then we'd be thinking in terms of what they were doing there in an airport, in a public place, inflicting an act or perpetrating an act of terrorism. That's how I would look at it. And if I was a cop, I would have no choice to say, look, stop or I'll shoot, and I would have done. You know, but again, we don't want to go to those extremes, but they were in a public airport, and that to me is an act of terrorism straight off.
I totally agree with you, Ian. I thought that about the ICE raids in America. If you tried to thwart law enforcement, probably not the best idea in the world. It's very sad that it led to 2 fatalities. But if I was in America, I would not be standing in front of, you know, ICE agents blocking their path whilst also armed at the same time, which was the case with one of those individuals. I know that ICE doesn't relate to this country, but it's the same thing. It's the rule of law.
I think, you know, if you have nothing to fear, if you have nothing to hide. The point is, something went on and we've seen it. And, you know, I was actually reminded, I said to your producer, I was reminded of the Death Wish films in the 70s.
Charles Bronson, you know, very good movies. Directed by Michael Winner.
Absolutely. And I mean, the character was an ordinary chap who didn't see justice being done, and he took it upon himself. Now, I would not advocate any kind of vigilanteism or anything like that, but unfortunately, if we don't see the justice system working properly, there is a risk that might happen.
First call of the show. Ian, you've got us off to a fantastic start. Have a lovely Saturday. Call me soon. Miranda's in Cumbria. Lucky you, Miranda. One of the nicest parts, not just of the country, but of the planet.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I love it. I love my Lake District. Now, Miranda, by the way, have they cleaned up Windermere yet?
No.
Because it breaks your heart. I was swimming in there a few years ago, only to find out it's full of you-know-what.
Yes, it's not the best. Coniston's probably the best, but
which one? Which one? Which one is the best?
Coniston, probably.
Coniston.
Yeah.
And what was that about your son?
He was swimming there, but they came out with swimmer's itch.
Oh, yikes. We don't want that. Well, look, what do you think about this issue with Henry Novak? He's a teenager. He tells the police he's been stabbed. They say, I don't think so. And he dies in handcuffs.
Well, I think it's truly disgusting. One of my relatives was a forensic scientist. And when I discussed it with them yesterday, they basically said the first priority of the police was to secure the crime scene. The comments about racism was completely irrelevant. And the fact that he'd been stabbed in the face, there would have been blood everywhere.
Yeah.
For them to say that he hadn't, and then to put him into handcuffs, the horror that boy must have gone through. I used to work on intensive care, and there were times if somebody was awake and they were going to... I mean, the poor lad exsanguinated, basically. The fear. And as a mother of 2 boys, now you think, oh, my God, if something had happened to one of my sons, it could have been anybody's son. That was the thing. And it's just disgusting me. But if that's what the police are being taught in their alleged police academy, because it is a comedy, really, if that's what they do. It is tragic.
Well, they're so blinded, Miranda, by ideology and an obsession with racism and hurty words that they do not have, or they neglect a duty of care to a dying man who says, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed. Their glib answer is, I don't think so. And he's in handcuffs. Like you said, so you've been in an intensive care unit. What he needed at that point, even if his life was ending, was for the cop to say, you're going to be okay, an ambulance is coming.
Just comfort him. And, you know, it's just horrendous. It made me upset, and I can't imagine what his parents are going to do. I really can't. I hope they sue the backside of the police.
Miranda, you're so right. I wish we had longer. Brilliant call. Let's speak again soon as well. Enjoy Lake Coniston. Aren't you lucky living there? You talk a lot of sense, Miranda. Let's take a voice note from Big Pete.
Good morning, Mark. This Manchester airport case. Clear video footage of the police being attacked. Now, the next time someone goes into court and they've got clear video footage of someone attacking somebody, can they cite this Manchester airport thing as case law, where they're saying, well, I'm sorry, video evidence doesn't mean anything anymore? Then what's the point? What's the point of having the law in this country? Is it the Lord Chief Justice or whoever it is in charge of this needs to reopen this case? It needs to be re-investigated and it needs to go back to court. It needs to go back to court hundreds of miles away from Manchester. It needs to go away there with a jury that's picked in secret, kept in secret, so that they cannot, any chance of anybody getting at this jury. This cannot be allowed in this country where these men attack police officers at an airport and get away with it, because if they think they're getting away with it and they've already got away with it so far, people will just do the same and they think they can get away with it as well, and they probably will with the way the law's going in this country. Anyway, have a nice day. Don't spill anything over yourself.
I'll try not to. Thank you for that, Pete. And here is an extraordinary voice note curated by Dave the engineer. This is Shaggy the trucker, who has experienced in the last 24 hours the full consequences of illegal immigration. This is a real world story, and it's an exclusive on Talk Breakfast. Shaggy the trucker. You won't believe this. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark. Shaggy the trucker here. Just got back in from Cali. Had 2 immigrants in my trailer. Even though it was sealed, they cut a hole in the roof, went through the scanner and everything else in Cali. Wasn't even on. They don't even let you look at it because they know it's not even on. And then you get pulled over into Dover. I spent all night in the jail in Canterbury for no reason at all. And then they say I'm going to get a £26,000 fine for importing immigrants, which has nothing to do with me. They've been found to be cutting a hole in the roof. The Lord is condemned, so all that is gone. It's a waste of time. And then what happens? They seem to get straight onto a bus and away they go. Anything what's colour related, we get stuffed all the way. It's a bloody joke in the country. As soon as that brain dead stormer, as we say up north, you can't knock in what God left out. It's never gonna happen. Oh, cracking show as normal, Mark. Crack on. Spoke to Ian at the beginning of the week. Bang on. Here, all the best. Take care. Let's get this sorted out and get all these disgusting creatures out of this country.
Shaggy, an incredible voice note. If you're listening, would you call us? Because I think we should pick this up maybe tomorrow and you can tell us your story. 0344 499 1000. Shaggy, if you can, reach out to us and Rory, and maybe we can put you on when you've got time. We can do it next weekend, whenever you want, because Shaggy is an HGV driver. Migrants broke into his truck, and he's the one arrested. Make it make sense. This is Talk Breakfast.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and my goodness me, we are busy this morning. I've just run over to the Talk kitchen to make myself a cup of tea. I would go to the Talk Sport kitchen, but it's infested. The Talk Sport kitchen, I love my colleagues at Talk Sport, but that kitchen should be taped off. It's like a crime scene. And I blame Jeff Stelling, Ray Parler, Perry Groves, and especially Adrian Durham. Let me tell you that Adrian joins us live on the show at 8:30 to talk about Arsenal in the Champions League final. More bad headlines for Prince Harry as campaigners urge him to give up his seat on the board at African parks amid allegations of abuse and rape by the charity in local communities in Africa. Let's get reaction from someone who knows Harry very well, the royal butler, Grant Harold. Good morning, Grant.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to see you. Now, poor old Prince Harry, he's not responsible for these allegations in regard to African parks, but it's more bad headlines in relation to one of the Duke's charitable endeavours.
It is, and the headlines, they don't kind of seem to stop. You know, this is the sad part. I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, with all the negative press he gets and all the the legal battles that go on, and I think you may have spoken about this as well before. His grandmother, the late Queen, I believe she only had two, legal things happen in her lifetime. And here we've got her grandson who seems to be, most weeks he's in the press for some legal thing, one or the other, even though this is not his fault, but it's not great. And I know sometimes people say, no PR is bad PR, but I hate to say it, but if you remember the royal family, it can be very bad PR.
Well, most definitely. I mean, let's have a look at the rap sheet. You've got Invictus. Now, that's a good charity, isn't it,
Yes.
Grant? You'll be intimately aware of it, and you'll have known about it, may have been involved in it when you were a butler in Buckingham Palace. So Invictus is good. You've got these injured servicemen and women who become heroes all over again, participating in top-level sport. The problem there is that many of the participants feel it's become about Harry and Meghan, and they feel it's been affected by the toxicity of the Sussex brand when it should be about the veterans. There is a concern about the funding of Invictus, with sponsors like Boeing pulling out of Birmingham 2027. So that's Invictus. Then you've got African parks and allegations of rape and abuse of people in Africa by the Rangers. And then, of course, there is the small matter of Centre Barley, a charity that Harry co-founded with his, in the memory of his mother, Princess Diana, which he's lost control of amid more bad headlines. So the problem you got for Harry, Grant, is that the one good thing in his life was the charity stuff, and even that seems to be a hot mess.
And you know what's interesting, Matt? As you said, it is a mess. And I think if things, let's just say things hadn't gone the way they've gone, say he was still very much a working member of the royal family, he was still had a great relationship with his family, this wouldn't be happening. It's an absolute fact. He would still be carrying on doing what he was very good at. I think the reality is, as we've seen, dare I mention, with his uncle, that, you know, when you become an embarrassment or a problem for the royal family, and obviously you then become distant from them, other organisations, other charities obviously don't want to have the association any longer, because it's also, you've got to understand, it's embarrassing for them, because, for example, with Invictus Games thing, you know, I mean, of course it's himself, but who's the commander-in-chief? The king, you know, of the armed forces. So you've got, so it's difficult for them. It's really difficult. And I feel sorry for some of these charities and some people involved, because they probably adore Harry and probably like Harry, but at the back of their minds be thinking, is this going to cause problems between us and another member of the royal family? Is this going to make things awkward? And you can understand why. You completely understand why. So I don't want to say it, but he has kind of brought a lot of this on himself. And as I said, if he hadn't gone down this route, it would be so different. There's no question in my mind on that.
Well, all of the charities are now problematic in terms of the PR and the headlines surrounding them. The business partnerships seem to have disappeared. The speaking engagements have dwindled and gone from £1 million a speech, or I should say $1 million, to $50,000. Then there is the broadcast deal with Netflix, which has gone south. And it seems that if Netflix are pursuing projects, it's going to be with Meghan, not Harry. He's not a frontline serving member of the royal family. Poor Harry, I don't wish to demonise him, but he must wake up in the morning sometimes thinking, what am I for?
Yeah, that made me smile, Matt. I was thinking, because I read that about his public speaking going from $1 million to 50,000. I don't know how he's going to manage to cope with such a little income. But, you know, the other thing is, they have made a lot of money. You know, they've made an awful lot out of the brand Sussex. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And which is, and that's, I think a lot of people are not against that, because at the end of the day, he has to make a living. He has to somehow make money. I think what people don't like is the fact that he did turn his back, without question, on the royal family, and yet he's using the royal brand in order to still push him. Even at that, the recent visit, you know, recently, where that was all, in all essence, it was almost like a royal tour. And these are things that technically he's not really supposed to be doing. I mean, his plan was to go to the States and no more royalness, no more, you know, have a completely different life. And to me, that he was going to have a celebrity lifestyle. That's exactly what I call them, a celebrity royal couple, because that's what they are. They're not a working royal couple, they're a celebrity royal couple. But they have managed to kind of obviously keep going. But it's just interesting that when times are tough and things seem bad, he seems to bring out the kind of royal card. And I hate to mention it, but, you know, I was talking on the show that I do the other day with my other co-hosts, and we were saying that a silly example, it's a really silly example, Matt, but, you know, the King, Prince William, Prince Wales, was talking about his late grandmother and her love for scones and how she liked to take her scones, which was a big debate in the UK. And it was quite fun because he had a little bit of cheekiness saying that, you know, the Queen would put the jam on top of the cream and this kind of thing. And we all thought, isn't that so sweet? And guess what? Meghan suddenly puts up a video saying, oh, by the way, this is how I take my scone. And again, it appeared to be, and it could just be the worst timing, but they were jumping on the back of Prince William's wonderful comments about his late grandmother. And it's like suddenly they were like, wait a minute, we're still here, we want to be involved. And I'm sorry, you can't. It's ridiculous. If anything, you know, they've walked away. You can't just keep coming back when you feel like it.
No, you can't. Well, you mentioned your show, which is absolutely massive on YouTube now. I will tell you, Grant, unlike poor old Harold, Harold, you're Grant Harold, he's Prince Harry. You've got the Midas touch. Uncensored Royals is doing great numbers on YouTube. You do it with Katie Nichols and a couple of other brilliant journalists. So, you know, that's really interesting what you've said on the show. I know that you care for Harry, that you have empathy for him, that you're fond of the guy. I know you're saddened by what's happened since he left the UK. You've mentioned to me before that one of the most surprising things is that he's lost touch with or even dumped some of his closest friends. What do you think his mental state is? Where do you think Harry is at now? Do you think the guy is happy, Grant?
Do you know, I find it very sad. You're right, because I get a lot of criticism because I don't defend him. I don't think I really defend him.
You like him.
I like him.
Could you know him?
I like him. And I knew him well, I knew him really well. I mean, him and his brother were at Highgrove most of the time that I was there. And so I have a really good relationship. And without question, Matt, and I was saying this to, as you mentioned, the lovely, wonderful Katie Nicholl and Joe Elkins, who the two presenters that I work with. The thing about him is he didn't have a bad bone in his body. He was one of the most wonderful, kindest, easiest going guys you could meet. And the Harry that I see now, and I'm hand in hand, not trying to say that it's Meghan. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I just know that he is a very, very different character. In fact, if I speak to any of my other colleagues from the household, if I speak to any other friends of his, they all agree the exact same. The Harry that we knew then is very different. And I have said maybe he's just grown up. Maybe it's just the fact that he's got older, he lives in a different country, he's got a different way about him. But it's not just that. It's almost like do you remember the movie, the Prince and the Pauper? And you had two brothers that looked identical, and they swapped roles. And
it's not a fairy tale. Thank
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8, top of the morning. This is Talk Breakfast. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. And breaking this morning, Nigel Farage has branded Britain's justice system broken after prosecutors announced that two brothers accused of assaulting armed police officers will not face a third trial. And here's the kicker. You and I will likely be covering their legal costs. Meanwhile, police apologise for arresting a dying teen after his murderer's wicked racism lie is revealed. So my question this morning is a simple one. Are British policing and justice now broken? How do we fix it? Do you still have faith in the courts? Do you have faith in our cops? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. You can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. You can also watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Luke is directing our TV output this morning. Dave's pressing the buttons. Rory is taking your calls. Are British policing and justice broken? 0344 499 1000. Dean Spencer is our executive producer. It's the Dream Team. Let's get to work. And in the spirit of the Dream Team, who better to address these big issues around policing and our judicial system than Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Mark.
Two awful stories. Let's start with the Manchester 2. Has it surprised you that they will not face trial?
So the situation is very concerning because this wasn't a judge that we could point a finger at and say the judge got it wrong and the judiciary needs, reform. This was a jury, trial by jury, and something has gone wrong in the architecture of the actual system itself that would allow a jury to come to a decision that these two guys shouldn't be convicted for attacking PC Marsden. Marsden being the one out of the three officers that tackled these people himself at the airport after they'd been violent with other people. So I think there's something wrong with the architecture of the judicial system itself that doesn't make it absolutely clear that to the jury that these two guys should go down. The other thing that I find quite interesting is that when you're in a jury trial, and I've been on a jury, the judge is quite instrumental in directing the jury on how it should interpret certain things, what the importance of certain issues are, and so on. And what seemed to be the critical point here is that there wasn't any actual bodily harm done to PC Marsden. Now, I'm sure you're aware, and most viewers are aware, that certainly when we were younger, if you were merely to abuse a policeman or woman, you'd be in trouble.
Correct.
But the bar here was set very, very high. The question was whether any actual bodily harm was done. And remember, PC Marsden himself was in a very difficult position because the other two officers with whom he was at the airport were women. And they'd both been viciously attacked by these two guys. And he was the one male guy there having to effectively protect his fellow officers and deal with these two thugs. And so he was put in an invidious position, probably having to take more bolder steps than he would have had to have done if he'd had two male coppers with him. And this raises the third issue in my mind, is whether women police officers, without wishing to denigrate women in any way whatsoever, whether they should be in these kind of potentially violent frontline
Yes.
duty.
Yeah.
Why put them in harm's way? Why allow people like Amaz and Amaz?
It's madness. It's utter madness, Ben.
It's absolute madness.
Do you expect a female police officer of short stature to deal with terrorists at an airport?
Well, exactly. That's the point. And it's this pursuit of progressive discrimination, which, by the way, is at the heart of the breakdown of our criminal justice system. Two-tier criminal justice, starting with the fact that these two women probably shouldn't have been put in a potentially violent position in the first place, being women police officers. The second being that the presumption seems to be in favor of the ethnic minority against the white police officer, who actually was not just protecting himself, trying to subdue two people who committed violence against others, but trying to protect his two female police officers next to him. The presumption was against him. The bar was set so high by the judicial system that these two guys were let off against him. Frankly, in my mind, if you even challenge a police officer, if you resist arrest in any shape or form, you should be found guilty.
Most definitely. I thought it was ridiculous, by the way, that Donald Trump was flanked by female bodyguards when an attempt was made on his life in the run-up to the election. It's wokery gone mad. Can we have, you know, in these environments, can we just have big, strong men protecting those around us? I think that would make a lot of sense. Well, Ben, I've reached out to my legal insider who's spoken to me anonymously with their assessment of what's happened in Manchester at the airport. Can I read his remarks to you?
Yeah.
I'm concerned but not surprised that the trial of the brothers accused of attacking police officers at Manchester Airport has collapsed. Failings like these are becoming increasingly common and destroying the public's dwindling faith in the criminal justice system. My legal insider has gone on to say, as a criminal defence solicitor of over 20 years, I can definitively say that it was right for these men to be charged. Footage, which has been shared repeatedly on social media, documents every second of the alleged attack, which appears to have included very extreme violence against the officers in question. One of the brothers already holds a conviction in connection to the assaults, which only makes the collapse of this trial more unjustifiable.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, Ben, procedurally, it is correct that second retrials are not typical, though I would argue that the public interest in this trial is so high as to justify an exception. The real issue here is racial factionalism and the refusal of members of one ethnic or religious group to convict one of their own. Having worked in courts across the country, I've seen multiple cases where trials have collapsed or where defendants have been acquitted despite overwhelming evidence. It's no exaggeration to say that this is a critical threat to the survival of our criminal justice system and raises serious questions as to how well integrated our so-called communities actually are. Your reaction?
Well, he's picked up on another point, which is that our criminal justice system now has in amongst it people from ethnic minorities who are effectively giving their own an easy ride. That goes beyond progressive discrimination. That's the result, I suspect, of progressive discrimination, that you have in the body of your institutions people who are basically hijacking your institutions for their own benefit. And this is the breakdown of the United Kingdom. This is where multiculturalism eventually ends up, with us all factionalized,
correct,
trying to look after our own, sectarianism absolutely set in stone, and no one trusting each other. And it comes back to a fundamental point that I've made a number of times, which the government and previous governments refuse to accept, which is that multiculturalism is basically antithetical to a settlement for a country. For a country to be able to be a country, for a society, community to be a society or a community, there has to be an understanding of each other's values and belief systems. And that's why culture, a common culture, is so important. But when you have different cultures, existing alongside each other, making no effort to integrate or assimilate, you're going to get this complete breakdown, the end of society, the end of communities, and therefore the end of the nation state. And governments are not prepared to face up to this. We've seen this in the microcosm of this legal case, against these two men attacking PC Marsden. But we're seeing examples of this right across the United Kingdom in every aspect of our lives, whether it comes to just employment, whether how you dismiss people from employment, the judicial system, how people are promoted in work, and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't need to remind people, I'm sure, that the RAF had a policy of only hiring fighter pilots from ethnic minorities. There couldn't be a more daft policy in favor of progressive discrimination designed to undermine our own security systems. And I could go on and on and on. And this has to stop. We've got to understand that a common culture is critical for the security and prosperity of this country, for the country to exist.
Well, I completely agree with you. And it's funny how the left dress up these terms, which on paper sound very good, Ben. Anti-racism, multiculturalism, diversity, inclusion. Yeah. These are all positive words masking a twisted, leftist, progressive ideology.
Completely. Inclusion. There's nothing inclusive about multicultural silos all operating in distrust of each other.
They are exclusive.
They're exclusive. They're divisive. There's no inclusion here. And that's what we've done to this country. And we've seen it in the trial of these two men who attacked PC Marsden.
And it's interesting, Ben, because you are a British man of ethnic background and you can see this. And yet, what about those Islingtonites, the woke liberals who are completely detached from reality? I don't get it. I sometimes think, Ben, that it is actually ethnic Brits that will save us.
Well, funny enough, my father being Pakistani, my mother's English, my father being Pakistani, I think
you're the best of both worlds, Ben.
Well, it gives me a clear view of what's going on. And I know from my own experience the absolute critical importance of being assimilated, being part of that in which you wish to live. If you're not part of it, you become excluded. You can't be settled. You can't be happy. And if you can't be settled, you can't be happy, distrust creeps in and prosperity breaks down. Even our economic, I shouldn't say even, our economic prosperity is undermined by multiculturalism because of the lack of trust that it creates. And of course, progressive discrimination means meritocracy is set aside and we're doing stuff in the pursuit of affirmative action rather than economic benefit. The whole thing is mad. And you can speak to any Pakistani in Pakistan and they will tell you how important national identity is, how important their national culture is. It's only in the United Kingdom that we've forgotten the critical importance of it.
Yes, indeed. And we are mugs for relinquishing what we had. It was treasure and we have squandered it. We've been so complacent, so arrogant, so entitled, Ben, and so irredeemably woke. Can we get now to Henry Novak, who is a teenager who was bleeding out of his own body whilst being handcuffed by cops because they believed his murderer that a racial slur had been made. Now, there's a few things to unpick here. I don't think anyone should be cuffed or arrested for hurty words, even if it's a disgusting racial slur. What does this case tell us about the culture of British policing?
Again, I think it's another a good example, good not being perhaps the best description, but it's a very pertinent example of how this progressive discrimination is playing out. The presumption, I think it was 3 women officers came to the scene and found Novak on the ground, and the presumption in their minds was the white guy must be guilty. Yeah. And when the Sikh guy with his kirpan accused him of racist comments, well, that was enough because hurty words have now become the new criminal. What the police are targeting is criminality. And hurty, he didn't apparently say anything racist, by the way. No. But even if he'd said repugnant things, abhorrent things that you and I would find unacceptable in polite society, that is no excuse to get a knife out and stab the guy. And the police, having been confronted by Novak, having seen Novak on the ground pleading for them to look at his wounds and for protection, they should have done something in his favor. In fact, I understand they laughed at him. And that is repugnant. That is repugnant, that they laughed at this man who died a few moments later.
It also demonstrates the selective moral blindness of the woke left, doesn't it? And how unempathetic these people are, Ben, that you can be so blinded by ideology that you don't notice or won't acknowledge a man literally bleeding out of his own body, who says, I can't breathe, who says that he's been stabbed. Their answer, I don't think so.
Yeah, and, you know, where does this head? This heads to what I would loosely define as a native population in the United Kingdom that is going to kick off against the institutions that govern it if the institutions don't get a grip themselves. The institutions, our government, need to wake up to the very serious damage that's taken place. Otherwise, the people will eventually take matters into their own hands, and that won't be good for anyone.
Most definitely. Ben, we love having you on the show. I hope you have an excellent Saturday, and we look forward to catching up soon. My thanks to Ben Habib, who is the leader of Advance UK. I think Ben spoke very well. Your reaction, what do you think about this, folks? 0344 499 1000. Are British policing and justice broken? How do we fix it? Your calls next.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Kevin, Southampton, where was the cops' camera footage? Normally it's out very quick if it suits the police. This time, nothing. That's Kevin, Southampton. Jessica is in Norfolk. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, Mark. Good morning. And
Top of the morning.
Thank you for your show. How are you? I hope you're doing okay.
Well, look, Jessica, I am, and thank you for thanking me, because let me tell you, there is no show without you and without everyone that participates.
Well,
you want to talk about Shaggy, don't you?
Well, yes, and other things. Well, there won't be time, but yes, I heard about Shaggy. Now,
so can I quickly bring forgive me, let me bring the audience up to speed in case anyone's just tuned in. This was a voice note from one of our listeners in a heavy goods truck, HGV, and he's coming out of France, and migrants have cut a hole in the roof of his truck, and they have been found. This guy then spends time overnight in jail and with the threat of a £26,000 fine, even though 2 illegals are broken into his truck. That's the story. Welcome to Broken Britain. What say you?
I want to know where the TGWU is and with the Labour Party, the Transport and General Workers Union. In the old days, lorry drivers might have been going on strike. And why should they get up and spend all the hours that God gives them bringing to us our food and all of the other things that we rely on them to transport into this country? I hope somebody will get in touch. I hope somebody from Talk can get in touch with him and support him, because why should he have to pay £26,000 fine for something? He's a victim. There's a common thread here, isn't there, between him and Henry Novak? They were victims.
Yeah.
They are victims.
And subject to unfair treatment, Jessica.
Yes. Yes.
And isn't this country founded on the idea of fairness?
Well, and we've taken it so much for granted. And just hearing Ben Habib just now, my 2 grandsons are both ethnically diverse.
Yeah.
I have worried about them in the future, but now you're right. We have to rely on them and to value the things that we have not valued enough. And I'm just so upset, and my heart goes out to Shaggy because he's gone home. He's probably asleep, I hope, by now.
Yeah.
But goodness, he's going to be so worried. £26,000 fine hanging over you for no fault of his own.
Jessica, I can hear the emotion in your voice. You're smashing, okay? You're smashing. You've got a big heart. You've got empathy, and you've got a pair of great kids, I've got no doubt. More power to you. Jessica, you've made my day. And I know that you'll have made Shaggy's day as well. Call me again soon. Jeff's in Southampton, where, of course, this was the location where Henry Novak bled to death whilst handcuffed by police. Morning, Jeff.
Morning, Mark.
I wish we didn't have to talk about this. I wish we could talk about the heat wave, one more day to go, a bit of sunshine. But this is a dark cloud hovering over the country, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is a bit, to be honest with you.
I know.
We seem to have a few things going on at the moment, and one of them is that why can't the police bring in prosecution to these 2 gentlemen? Well, they're not gentlemen, but to these 2 people, with the airport fight.
Well, I agree. A private prosecution, a civil action, something like that. The public want justice. They want it to be seen to be done, Jeff.
Yeah, of course they do. Basically, I would think everyone wants it to be done. Why are they going to walk away scot-free now?
I think that's right. Jeff, you're in Southampton. What is the mood of your city at the moment in the aftermath of this story?
Well, you've got a couple of things, really. You've got, in West Sussex, you've got the rape of the 2, the girls in, on
the beach.
Fordham, yeah.
Yep.
Well, you've got the stabbing on the beach in Brighton. You've got the rape of the girls in Fordham Bridge. You've now got the killing of that young lad. At the end of the day, no one should be able to carry a knife.
Well, are you ready for this other delightful one on a Saturday morning, Jeffrey? Boat migrant who claimed he was a persecuted bisexual is convicted of raping a woman at a hostel. I mean, at what point, Jeff, the authorities, those who govern us, at what point do they wake up? How bad does the crime have to be, such as a woman that works in a migrant hotel murdered with a screwdriver at the local train station? I mean, when is enough enough, Jeff?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, to be honest with you, I watched Kevin O'Sullivan's on YouTube this morning. I watched his report about the migrants coming over on the boat.
Yeah, that was brilliant, and
it was really good. And the amount of young nipplers coming over, is ludicrous. They're going to, at the end of the day, Starmer's going to bankrupt this country.
Extraordinary stuff. Jeff, listen, thank you for a brilliant call, and you take care of yourself. Have a very good Saturday. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. So many calls to get through, so many voice notes, so many texts as well. Are British policing and justice broken? How do we fix it? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Adrian Durham from TalkSport is on the way to talk about the Champions League final that features an English team. They're the second best team in England behind Tottenham, and that is Arsenal. Sorry, I got something in my throat. What about this? Let's have a look at some of your texts because there is so much to go at. How about this from Bill in Liverpool? Good morning, Bill. Mark, when you join the police, the main thing that you have told to you is your first consideration is the preservation of life and property. As a retired police officer, if it was me who was sent to this stabbing/racism incident, the preservation of the victim's life would have been my first consideration. And depending on the number of officers at the scene, the alleged victim of racist words would have been handcuffed on suspicion of the stabbing. Well, that's exactly right. Why a potential stabbing is less serious than hurty words is anyone's guess. This from Lee in Walsall. I took a voice note earlier. Shaggy drives a heavy goods vehicle. His truck is broken into by migrants. He gets arrested, spends the night in jail, and is threatened with a £26,000 fine. They cut the roof of his truck off to get in, and he's the criminal. Make it make sense. Lee says, regarding Shaggy, if he gets done for bringing in 2 illegal immigrants, what about the border force bringing in hundreds a day when they're not being arrested for it? Lee, you get it. I get it. Those who govern us do not. This from Paul. I don't know how to, but what about a GoFundMe for the HGV driver? Well, it's a great idea. I've got to tell you that I don't think it's going to see the light of day because this man's truck was damaged so these folk could get into it. I don't see how that one is going to stand up in court. What about female officers in violent places? We'll come to that in just a moment. We do have some rare good news amid all the negative political headlines. And it's the participation of Arsenal, the champions of England, in the Champions League final against PSG. Can they do it? Can they do the double? Who better to ask than the chief live football anchor at TalkSport? And let me tell you, one of my broadcasting heroes and a very old friend, Adrian Durham. Hi, Adrian.
Mark, what a privilege to be on your show. It's an absolute joy. I can't believe I was asked. I'm humbled, and it's just such a joy to be on your show with you this morning.
Well, listen, that's very kind of you to say, Adrian. We're so happy to have you. I'm very excited about the game, and I'm looking forward to TalkSport's coverage, which is always top draw. Here's my question. I'm going to paraphrase Adrian Durham. Arsenal, are they all that?
In some ways, yes, they are. Listen, they're the champions, first time in 22 years. You can't ever take that away from them. We can analyse and scrutinise how they play, and it's not as authentically brilliant as the last time they won the title, when they had Thierry Henry and Robert Pires in the side, and they were truly fantastic, played some golden football. They're doing it a very different way, but what Mikel Arteta's had to do is find a way to win the title, because they've tried the pretty football, it didn't work. He had to do something different, and he's done that. It's a kind of aggressive style of play, very defensive style of play, and not everybody is enraptured by it, but it's work. They are the champions, so they're not particularly well loved unless you are an Arsenal fan, and they're loving life right now, the Gooners.
Well, the reason why talkSPORT is such a successful network, it's the biggest sports radio station on the planet, is because hosts like yourself are connected to the fans. You're a fan yourself, of course, and yes, good football is important, but winning is everything.
Yeah, ultimately that's correct. And somehow you had to stop the Manchester City financial juggernaut. Somehow you had to get the better of Liverpool, who won the title last season. Liverpool being absolutely useless this season helped with that cause. And other sides that normally are in and around it, Chelsea, etc., haven't really done anything. Manchester United are kind of back in the top four, but not really back. And there's big questions for them next season. So Arsenal have taken advantage of that. But there's a lot of qualities about what they do as well, and I don't think in an attacking sense they're as bad as people make out. So yeah, in answer to the original question, yes, they are all that. They're the champions of England. Now we've got to see if they're going to be the champions of Europe, and this is a real clash of stars because Paris Saint-Germain play some scintillating football. When they get going, they are irresistible, and Arsenal are completely different to that, and one of these stars will win out. We'll see.
And the Arsenal fans, the Gooners, are travelling to Budapest in their thousands, Adrian.
Yes, they are. I was on a plane full of them yesterday. Somehow I survived. I was okay. But they...
yes, because you've had run-ins with a few Gooners over the years, because you're a very forthright commentator and you take no nonsense.
Well, the thing is with that, I mean, we're actually focusing on this on the show. We're telling the story of the 22 years without a title, 20 years since their last Champions League final, which they lost to Barcelona in Paris. And we're kind of telling the story of those 20 years, but through the lens of talkSPORT. Slightly talkSPORT indulgent, but there's a reason why. It's because after that Champions League final in Paris in 2006, I hosted a phone-in from Paris, and I said, I think it'll be a long time before Arsenal are back at the top table in English football and in the Champions League, and so it proved to be correct. So I think it's Arsenal fans didn't like me making that prediction. They thought it was very negative, anti-Arsenal. They thought I hated Arsenal, and so that story went on every year where they didn't win the title, every year where they didn't make the Champions League final. I was being proved correct, and they hated it even more. So it became a big thing to the point where we started a feature on the Drive show called The Daily Arsenal. Arsenal fans absolutely hated it with a passion. I still get asked about it today. I think it's one of the most successful features we've ever done on talkSPORT. And generally, over the years, it's kind of mellowed out a bit to the point where I actually married an Arsenal fan, and I'm okay. It's all right. We're still together. It's fine. If they win tonight, I'm not entirely sure if we will stay together, but we'll see how that goes. But it's a big story the last 20 years. That relationship between me and the Gooners is a big story. So we're telling that story. It's been tough at times when I've been at Arsenal and they've been losing games and they've let me know about it like it's my fault. So in many ways, I think it'll be a nice closure of the circle if they actually win the Champions League tonight. But yeah, we're telling that story on the show tonight.
Well, I think your relationship with the Arsenal fans has been 2 decades of glorious banter. And actually, it's very similar to talk, that talkSPORT is about debate. You know, no one's got a monopoly on wisdom or the truth, and it's as true for politics as it is for football. Half the audience will agree with you, half won't. Of course, as a Spurs fan, I agree with every syllable of your critique of Arsenal, who maybe one day can dream of becoming the #1 team in North London. Adrian, there's going to be an amazing atmosphere. What about the stadium in Budapest? Is it impressive? What's it going to be like this afternoon?
Well, I was here 4 years ago, I think it was, for an England game that England actually lost under Gareth Southgate in the Nations League. The stadium is a beautiful stadium, there's no question. It's a beautiful bowl of a stadium. The atmosphere in it, I think, will be fantastic. There are thousands and thousands of Arsenal fans who have come out here without tickets. But what they're hoping to do is either get a ticket here or be around the stadium or close enough to the stadium to celebrate with those fans in the stadium after the final is completed, should Arsenal win. But there are thousands of Arsenal fans here without tickets. They just want to be in the vicinity, and I kind of get that. So yeah, I think it's an Arsenal takeover. Paris Saint-Germain traditionally haven't had a load of fans. It's only relatively recently in football terms that they have become very successful. So their fan base is kind of growing. They are the European champions. They absolutely walloped Inter Milan 5-0 in the final last year. So there's a fear factor, I think, among the Arsenal fans a little bit. But I don't know, speaking to some on the plane yesterday, I kind of got the impression they thought that they will be able to nullify what PSG do, and that's the main thing. Arsenal are the destroyers rather than the creators. If they stop PSG, frustrate PSG, then that could lead to Arsenal kind of growing into the game and maybe sealing its second half. That's what the fans are hoping anyway.
Well, Adrian, one of the reasons why I'm addicted to talkSPORT is I love football, and I just love British football, you know, and the Championship is an incredible league, and the Premier League, I mean, surely the #1 league in the world, and now we have once again an English team in a major European final.
We do, and I was in Istanbul for Aston Villa's victory. I was in Leipzig for Crystal Palace's win, which I have to tell you was a really lovely, wholesome football night. Both sets of fans were brilliant. The Villa performance was superb. Some great goals in that game. So, yeah, 2 out of 3 so far, and now it's no pressure, Arsenal. You've got to complete the set. So they've got the toughest game of the 3 without any question. PSG have got some brilliant, truly brilliant players. But what you say is right. I mean, the one thing I feel sorry for Arsenal about, Mark, is this. You're a Spurs fan, and Arsenal will never know what it's like to win a relegation battle. Spurs have that feeling, and I'm sure you really enjoyed it.
Well, that's it. The game is about glory, and we know that Tottenham are the biggest winners of the season. Listen, Adrian, it's going to be incredible. Who are you out there with? Tell me about the lineup.
For the game later on, Jim Proudfoot will be our commentator. Brilliant. Stuart Pearce will be, I mean, what a legend. Former England captain. He is once scored a great goal for Newcastle in the Champions League. So, yeah, we're privileged to have him alongside us. Great bloke.
Listen, it's incredible what you do at talkSPORT. It's a massive force. It's the biggest sports radio station in the world. OK, before I let you go, Adrian, prediction. I know that's a dangerous thing to do. I won't hold you to it. But do you think Arsenal can do a job? Can they do a number on PSG?
Right. This is interesting because my view on this has changed. So all the way through, Arsenal were brilliant in the league stage, but that's not really anything to shout about. Spurs finished 4th in the league stage. So, you know, there's some easy teams. You could get an easy draw. They had a couple of tricky games, but they won every single game, Arsenal. So fair play to them. It's when you get to the knockouts that normally you're tested, but Arsenal really haven't been tested this season. They've not really faced, you know, a really top side. So, for example, Manchester City had to go through the playoffs last season. They faced Real Madrid and went out. They faced Real Madrid early in the tournament this time around. But Arsenal have had a relatively easy run to the final. So I was thinking, get through the semi-final, and then they'll face one of the big boys in the final, probably PSG, and then they'll get their comeuppance. That will be it. And they'll be losing finalists. But the closer it's come, and the fact that they're over the line in the Premier League when they were wobbling and kind of limping over the line with 1-0 against Burnley, etc., I thought, right, they've got that done, so the pressure's off. So actually they will relax into this final. So my view has changed. I think it could go the full distance. I think we're looking at maybe a 1-1, possibly even a 2-2. And maybe down to penalties, in which case Arsenal have got a very good chance of bringing the trophy home. I'm sad to tell you, Mark Dolan, Spurs fan.
Most definitely. We will be listening to every second of the action on talkSPORT. Adrian, you are the boss. Enjoy the game with Jim and Stuart. Unmissable coverage on talkSPORT. Of course, the build-up before 5 p.m, 5 p.m. kickoff. Do not miss it, even if you're a Spurs fan. My thanks to Adrian Durham. Hannah is in Somerset, and earlier I was talking to Ben Habib. We both took the view that it's wrong for female police officers to be policing violence at an airport or perhaps being a bodyguard to a president. Well, Hannah, I believe you beg to differ. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Am I in trouble?
No, you're not in trouble. I'm more upset with Ben, who made the comment, to be fair.
Well, listen, you are a former police officer, and what's your view on where women police officers should be serving and where they shouldn't?
Okay, so I was medically retired around 2015, and if you bear with me a moment, I was medically retired with PTSD, and sometimes because of the comment that was made, actually quite triggered me, and so my thoughts and organisation of my response is a bit jumbled, perhaps.
Of course. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what you've been through, Hannah. So we'll give you time. So I really want to know what you think, and there's no rush on this.
So I joined the police in 1997, and within my probation, I was based in Slough, and there was a high ethnic community there, and sadly I was called to an incident where a woman had been stabbed. Well, I didn't know it was a woman that had been stabbed. She'd been stabbed through the throat. Now, that happened back in around 1999, and I was medically retired in around 2015 due to that incident. And going back to the comment that was made, I was a very diligent police officer. I worked very hard in the job that I did.
Yeah.
It was the organisation that I feel let me down, because in the different places that I have worked, you're fighting around policing politically, but where if you're policing due to offences being committed by any person, you can deal with it on the ground, and you have to deal with things organically.
Yeah.
Now, statistics have been twisted before around where there is, people would say more ethnic minorities would get stopped than white people for offences.
Yeah.
But some of the truth in that was that police officers would get more complaints if they arrested ethnic minority people.
Yeah. So you're trying to do your job, but you're also worried that when you get back to the Nick, you're in trouble with your senior officer.
Yes, it was a look at papers. So we used to fill out forms for stop and searches, and within the stop and searches, you would record, your minority group or whatever anybody's ethnicity is, and sometimes if you're trying to prevent a crime from happening, so you're looking at in an area and you think someone's acting suspiciously, and you've got grounds to believe that something, an offence might be going to be committed, or someone fits a description of where an offence has been committed, you can do a stop and search. And there's obviously grounds for you to be able to do that. And sometimes, if someone was compliant, then it was like a conversation rather than it being necessarily anything that really had to be at that time. And I'm talking, we're talking back in between the period of time that I was working. Things have obviously evolved over the last sort of 10, 12 years since I haven't worked there. But what the point that Ben made that I found, obviously anyone can ask, raise a question.
Yeah.
And at the minute he said it, I wasn't actually listening to it. My husband was getting ready for work, and I heard it, and it was immediately, you what? Because I know how both men and women police officers, there's a lot in there that work really hard to try and do their job, but their hands feel tied. Now, should they be in the police? Now, I think that both men and women police officers offer different things, but equally we're there to do the same job, to try and help people.
So just, Hannah, obviously briefly, apologies because the clock's against us, and you're welcome to come back and we'll talk at greater length. But what you're saying is actually you deploy cops. It shouldn't be necessarily concerned about gender. You probably want the right team, including in an airport or in a terror situation. It just needs to be a well-composed team, and it's not about saying men only. Is that really the message?
No, it's a good team, proper leadership, and also dealing with the crimes right at the basic, because if you deal with some of the minor offences, like the shoplifting, and some of the minor offences, you start to set a precedence as to what is and isn't allowed until it gets to the higher offences. It's no different than parenting, really.
Yeah.
You deal with the minor things so that it doesn't escalate into bigger things. And when you're dealing with incidents such as what happened at the airport, you're dealing with an immediate situation you've got to deal with there and then.
And you're saying there is a place for a WP PC as well under those circumstances.
Because you know it was often a male-dominated role,
right?
And often I was able to diffuse situations, but equally I was able to get my hands on too.
And you're trained to restrain someone, but as you say, as a woman, you might also have a unique contribution under certain circumstances. Hannah, I was wrong. I was wrong, and I think Ben was wrong. I'll get him back on. We'll discuss this. But you've given me pause for thought, and I hear what you're saying. I wish we had longer. Please stay in touch with me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to appoint you our official policing correspondent. Please call me again when there's a big policing story, because I think you've got huge knowledge, you've got great experience, and you were medically retired because of your courage and your hard work. And therefore, I'm humbled to have had you on the show. And I'm so glad that you have set the record straight. Call me again soon. Best wishes to you and your husband, Hannah. Really important conversation. This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Levi Belfield is one of the most vicious and dangerous mass murderers in the history of this country. There is now a compelling documentary about this monster. It is called Levi Belfield, Confessions of a Serial Killer. Take a listen.
Breaking news concerning Levi Belfield. He has been found guilty of the abduction and murder of Millie Dowler.
Levi Belfield has been reaching out from behind his bars for virtually the whole time that he's been in prison.
I don't know, but I knew that I had to go down there and tell them that I think they should look into him.
In this country lane in Kent, the attacks were carried out with sadistic ferocity.
We unearthed masses of evidence and information which showed us just how low he had sunk in his criminality. This is a man who charm, convince, manipulate, control everybody he came across.
Levi Belfield, Confessions of a Serial Killer. That is on Amazon Prime. It is well worth a watch. The star of this documentary is retired murder senior investigating officer Colin Sutton. Good morning, Colin.
Morning, Mark.
This is a really important documentary. It's compelling and it's disturbing. What a piece of work this man is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole reason that we made this film, this series, was that he continues to try to be relevant. He continues to try to muddy the waters, stir the pot, however you want to put it. And in doing that, he causes further grief and upset for the families of his victims and indeed his surviving victims. And so that really was the starting point for us in making this film. Was we thought, well, let's try to set the record straight. He's spending his time now admitting to things that he hasn't done, or we don't think he's done. He won't even admit the things that we know he has done, that he's been found guilty of in front of a court. So let's open the book and let's show really all the things that we found out about him that have never been in the public domain before.
He's effectively trolling his victims, and there's very little that can be done about that other than a film like this, which counters his nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, and that said, that was the motivation. That was why we wanted to do this. And particularly when he came out with this quite detailed statement about how he claims to have been responsible for killing Lynn and Megan Russell in 1996. And a large part of the series is shows myself and Joe Brunt and Mark Leach, my two colleagues from my former murder squad, and we went through it line by line to see if we could prove whether or not he was telling the truth.
Can you tell us about some of Belfield's most egregious crimes, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, he was involved with the grooming gang in London at the end of the last century and the first couple of years of the 2000s, with 11 to 15-year-old girls, mostly from a children's home, that were groomed and then abused by a gang of men. He was involved with that. He is by far and away the worst domestic abuse perpetrator I ever came across in my service, and I spent some time working in that field before I was a murder detective, and he's just out on his own. Every single woman who he encountered in his life and who got into his life ended the worse, either physically, financially, sexually, mentally, or sometimes all four. He has done lots and lots of things, many assaults, sexual assaults, for which he'll never stand trial because, of course, he's in prison forever, thankfully.
Most definitely. What are we looking at here, personality type-wise? Is this somebody that is mentally ill? Is he evil? Does he have a pathology? How might we process what's wrong with this man, Colin?
It's kind of above my pay grade, really, Mark. But I mean, I think he's definitely a narcissist. He's definitely completely self-absorbed, and anything and everything he ever does is what he feels like doing, and to hell with what effect it has on others. Yeah, he has just no regard for other people, for other people's rights, for other people's needs and feelings. He just does what he likes, and I think it was summed up some time ago that Levi only matters to Levi.
So can you describe one of his murders, just so that we get a flavour of his modus operandi, how he worked, what kind of target he focused on?
Well, the two murders for which we convicted him in 2008 took place in 2003 and 2004. They were both random or blitz hammer attacks from behind on young adult women, blonde women, walking in the street near their home. And although he's never admitted those, from the information and the evidence that we gleaned, we believe that the motivation for it was that he'd made approaches to these young women to come with him for consensual sex, that he was turned down, and in turning him down, they used language which he found triggering or offensive, and so he went ahead and lay in wait and attacked them as they walked past him.
So a violent man that is also a sexual threat and a proven paedophile as well. I mean, this is just evil bingo, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and that's why I think I say in the film, that in my view, he is the most dangerous and prolific offender behind bars in this country at this time.
Would you call someone like this monster clever?
Oh, there's no doubt that he was cunning. There's no doubt that he was intelligent in the street smart sense, not the educated sense, and that enabled him to evade capture for so long. And it wasn't just the smartness; it was also he has some undeniable charm. He's got the gift of the gab. And psychologists tell me that is a common trait of the psychopath, is to have superficial charm. There is no doubt that this man had, and probably still has, charm in spades, and he used it to get people to drop their guard. But not just his victims, but he also used that charm for many years to weave his way through the criminal justice system without actually suffering any major convictions until 2008.
Were there near misses, Colin? Did people sort of dodge a bullet with Belfield? Were there women that might have been attacked that escaped that scenario?
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah, and we've heard from some of them. I mean, ironically, one of the near misses that I learned about later was actually somebody was a school friend of mine who was in the class with me at school.
Oh my goodness!
And she, I had lunch with her some years ago now, and she told me about the time that she had a near miss with him. Yeah, there will be scores, hundreds.
What do you know? What were the circumstances of that near miss? Did she suspect that he was going to harm her and she got away?
Yeah, it was while he was working on the doors at a club in southwest London, and sort of accosted her and tried to get her to go around the corner, and she managed to escape.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I know an ex-girlfriend referred to him as 6 foot 1 inch of evil.
Fair enough. Yeah, I couldn't argue with that, Mark.
No. And what about the awful case of Millie Dowler? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was the Surrey Police investigation and not mine, but of course I know quite a bit about it. I mean, the facts of the case were that Millie was walking from Bolton railway station, aiming to go home after a day at school, and she was abducted and murdered, and her body was found 6 months later. And it just happened that she was abducted within about 20 yards of the flat where Levi Belfield provably was at that time. So it's interesting because Millie was only 13 and so was probably in a different category to the victims that he murdered and for whom he's serving the first sentences. She probably fits the victim profile much more of the gang he was involved in, who were abusing young teenage girls at that time.
Briefly, if you can, Colin, why do you think Belfield is now claiming to have committed crimes that he didn't?
He's bored. He's in prison forever. He wants the notoriety. He wants to remain relevant. He likes to get his name and his face on the front page of the papers. And it's just him satisfying his own desires, but once again being completely ignorant of the effect that it's having on others.
Colin, it is a stunning, devastating and important documentary. I mean, it's quite the most extraordinary television. Let me tell you, the Levi Belfield Confessions of a Serial Killer is out now, and it's on Amazon Prime, and I wouldn't normally plug another network, but it's worth it. Try a month's trial for free or whatever it is. But whatever you do, watch this show, Levi Belfield Confessions of a Serial Killer, starring Colin Sutton, a legendary ex-cop. Thank you, Colin. What were you going to say, Colin?
Just one more thing I wanted to say was I didn't realise all these years that we're fellow Tottenham sufferers. But
come on, you Spurs. I know. I'm cheering PSG on tonight. Listen, we'll catch up soon, Colin. So much to talk about in the matter of policing. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Four minutes past 9, top of the morning. This is Talk Breakfast. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. Last day of the heat wave. Let's enjoy it. And breaking this morning, Nigel Farage has branded Britain's justice system broken after prosecutors announced that the two brothers accused of assaulting armed cops at Manchester Airport will not have a third trial. It gets worse. It's likely that you and I will be paying the court costs of these two thugs who are on camera indulging in violence towards police officers. Make it make sense. Meanwhile, police apologise for arresting a dying teen after his murderer claims racism. So my question this morning is a simple one. Are British policing and justice broken? If so, how do we fix it? 0344 499 1000 is our phone number. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leaves a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Well, let's kick off, as always, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 9:05 with Dolan's Dispatch. Whether it's the grooming gangs, the Manchester Arena bomber, Axel Rudikabana, or the cold-blooded murder of Henry Novak, all of these crimes were able to happen because the authorities, the ones that are meant to make us safe, live with the daily fear of being called racist. Like the Manchester Arena security guard, who was afraid to stop the terrorist Salman Abedi, who was a very odd-looking bloke with a long beard of Arab ethnicity, walking around this venue at an Ariana Grande concert with a suspiciously large backpack. Folks, you only need to know that this is a red flag. If you don't, you've got half a brain cell. The security guard was afraid to call this out or stop him that night for fear of being called racist. The consequence, 22 people dead. Many young girls, many more injured seriously. What about the head teacher who flagged up the issue of Axel Rudikabana as being a dangerous and problematic person who could harm others? She was shut down by the authorities who were afraid of being called racist. He went on to murder 3 little girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. We've had the evil Pakistani Muslim rape gangs who may be responsible for the abuse of more than 250,000 predominantly young white British girls. Local politicians, social services, the police, all turned a blind eye. There was a clear racially aggravated element to these crimes, willfully ignored by the authorities who were there to protect those girls. In some cases, police officers raided properties in which a young girl in a room full of men was the one arrested for being drunk or even, wait for it, a prostitute. Well, I'm so sorry, cops, but I'm not exactly Kavanaugh QC, but I can assure you that a 13-year-old cannot be a prostitute. How can a cop go into a room where clear abuse has happened, there are 10 or 15 grown men and one vulnerable girl underage, and arrest the girl? Well, it's the same mentality of the cops who handcuffed Henry Novak as he bled out of his own body because they'd been told he said a racist thing to the man who has this week been convicted of his murder. In the end, all of this is rooted in a fear of being called racist. Now, firstly, I don't think that anyone should be arrested or handcuffed or imprisoned for words. Racist slurs are disgusting, they are horrific, they are wrong. But I don't think you should be jailed or cuffed for it. Notwithstanding that poor Harry never said a racist thing in the first place. But secondly, the authorities, politicians, and most importantly, the police have to completely forget about skin colour and start tackling crime again, irrespective of the perpetrator. Give up all the racist stuff and go after bad people. Cutting back on stop and search, in which youngsters are checked for knives, has seen more knife crime. Why do they get rid of stop and search? They're afraid of being called racist. Rich, middle-class, latte lefties in Islington think stop and search is terrible. They think it's a racist, except that it needs to happen to reduce knife crime, which predominantly impacts ethnic communities more. So if you cut stop and search, you have more black and brown boys dying. But do these leftist virtue signalling idiots care? Of course they don't. They exist in another parallel universe, unaffected by the consequences of their fashionable North London dinner party opinions. We cannot have two-tier policing, and we cannot have two-tier justice. A good example of which would be the catastrophic decision not to have a third trial for two thugs who the world has seen on camera attacking police officers just doing their job at Manchester Airport. To add insult to injury, not only will they not have their day in court and walk free, we will likely be paying their legal costs, which will run into the hundreds of thousands. The whole thing is a sick joke. Political correctness, wokery, and the fear of being called racist is ludicrous, mad, and wrong. But it's dangerous too. And in the case of Ruda Cabana, Salman Abedi, and the man who murdered Henry Novak, it is literally killing us. Racism is now an industry. It's a grift, and it's been politically leveraged, and it's got nothing to do with protecting people of colour or equality. It is an instrument of war being used against the people of this country. Don't forget that the madness of critical race theory will have you believe that you can be racist simply for having white skin. So it is time to consign this mad, dangerous ideology into the dustbin of history. And it's time for the police to start doing their job again and to go after the bad people, whatever their skin colour. 0344 499 1000, your reaction. Do you still have faith in British policing and in British justice? Is it broken? If so, how do we fix it? Paul is in Southampton, where Henry Novak bled out of his own body whilst being handcuffed by police. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mark. How's it going?
Very good, Paul. Obviously, it's a miserable day news-wise because of these two stories that are very much in parallel, because it's about two-tier justice and two-tier policing, isn't it?
I think it's consequence of action, and I think our police, nobody's holding the senior police officers to account. If you look at Craig Guilford, he resigned. He lied to a parliamentary inquiry, and he resigned and just walked away with his pension.
Yeah.
There's no consequence for these people doing what they did. Right. And as for that deputy chief inspector that made the announcement yesterday about the guy that got killed round the corner, those officers, I think, should be fired for gross incompetence and gross negligence. They were negligent as they never give this bloke first aid. I mean, you must have seen the blood all over the place.
Correct. Also, if there was no visible blood, do you think a man on the floor that says, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed, ought to be taken seriously, even if there isn't blood?
Well, absolutely. And as I say, this is the incompetence and the negligence of the officers that were there. And I think every single government department for the last 30-odd years has been has got this cancer of woke ingrained in the top echelons, and these people are not being held responsible. There has to be a consequence for their bad decisions, their bad policies. You were saying about stop and search and these rape gangs. Why are the police constables of these areas where these rape gangs have been allowed, why have they not been suspended or fired? Because they must have known about it.
Most definitely, Paul, I agree with you.
I mean, the decision not to investigate and prosecute these scumbags in all those towns has to be made at such a high level that it has to be them. They are the cause of this. So why is there no consequence for these people? Sack them, take their pension, take their titles. Rowley, they reckon there's up to 9,000 rape cases going on. I mean, even if you look at, who's that far right guy? Can't remember his name now.
What?
Got me all.
Well, I don't know who's far right, because apparently if you've got 90s opinions, you're far right. If you think we should have borders, you're far right. So it doesn't. It's almost all of us, really. I think about 87% of the country is far right now.
Tommy Robinson, that's the man.
Oh, Tommy Robinson, yeah. Well, I didn't want to use the term far right there because I think it's such a label these days, isn't it?
Well, I'm right wing, and I think no, I don't think he's far right, but it's a label he's been incorrectly.
I don't like these labels.
No, I don't. But he started off about these rape gangs in Luton trying to get his cousin.
He was heroic about that.
Exactly.
He's been brilliant on it.
Yeah, this is my point. But nothing's been done, and it's just getting worse.
Oh, and he's the bad guy. Oh, he's the bad guy.
No,
he called out the rape gangs. He's the bad guy, apparently.
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
It's because of BBC and all that woke garbage, and this is the problem. There's no consequence. Look at Grant Chapps. He snuck in 18,000 Afghans on a super injunction. What's happening to him? He's walked away. He's got his government pension. He gets brought in on your programme and other programmes to give his £5.
Oh, yeah, I know. But giving it large, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody asked for his
Brain of Britain.
I mean, he is a governmental journeyman that they just stuck him anywhere. I mean, he knows nothing about nothing.
I love it. Paul, I can't disagree. Listen, Paul, before I let you go, because I've got so much to pack into this hour. The clock's against me, and I'm so glad you called. You speak very well. What is the mood in your city now? Because Southampton is where this tragedy happened in regard to Henry Novak. What's the mood?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I live on the other side of Southampton. Where this went on, it's right in the university, sort of where all the accommodation and where they sort of don't want to live in digs, so they go around. And I'm not really over that way. So to be honest, my friend, it's not really spoken about. It's it's going on everywhere. So if it happens then, and then it will happen down the road. The murders we've had in Bournemouth, what's been going on in Brighton, the centre south of England is supposed to be a nice area to live, and there's bodies and rapes going on everywhere.
It's a nightmare. It's a living hell. And Paul, I grew up going to Bournemouth once a year in the summer for a few days with my mum and dad. And the Royal Bath Hotel and the beachfront and the restaurants and the pubs, and it was heaven on earth. And now it's turning into a modern-day hellscape. Paul, you're a fine man. Call me again soon. Lots more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
they found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Always, yes, Steve. You see, what happens, the magic, you see, of live broadcasting, and let me tell you this, because I've been in this business now for 3 decades, and I've worked at ITV, Channel 4, Sky. It's all fake. A lot of it's scripted. They've got producers that write it. This is real, folks. And we come out of the break, and I've got to put my microphone on, and that is why Talk is growing and why we are an unstoppable force, because it's real, it's fun, it's authentic, it's no nonsense. Speaking of no nonsense, someone that is correctly mic'd up is Kate Ferguson, because she's a professional. And she is the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, no less. Kate, so many stories to get through. Very good to have you with us. Now, we've been talking about this awful case of Henry Novak, who's a young lad that bled to death and rather horrifically was handcuffed at the same time, in spite of telling cops that he'd been stabbed and he couldn't breathe. There's a debate now to be had about these knives that some people carry, which surprisingly are legal. So what's the story there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn it's legal to carry these knives. These are meant to be kind of ceremonial knives that you can get permission for and carry if you're Sikh. And I think this hasn't really erupted in the public imagination yet, or public consciousness, because we don't have a huge problem in this country of Sikh men using these knives to assault other people. But obviously this really horrific case has brought that to light, and I think that a lot of people will be shocked that you're allowed to carry these knives at all. Usually, obviously, they're for ceremonial religious purposes, and they are not often misused like this, which is why it hasn't bubbled up. But this case is really horrific. I mean, I think just the idea, anyone bleeding out on the floor, any victim of crime, any stabbing victim would be handcuffed. You know, you wouldn't even expect that if they had been a perpetrator, because they're incapacitated, and the most important thing at that point is to keep them alive. So the idea that they were handcuffed while bleeding out is just horrific. But it has raised this broader point of, is it okay for Sikh men to carry these knives? And today, Robert Jenrick, who is in Reform, obviously Reform UK,
Shadow Chancellor, as it
he's
were.
actually Shadow Chancellor, but he still has a big interest in Home Affairs. He's calling for them to be banned.
Yes, well, he was, of course, the Justice spokesman when he was back in the Tories.
Yeah.
And we probably need to have that conversation. I spoke to Mike Neville, who's a very experienced ex-cop, on the show yesterday, and he said that British Sikhs are significantly, from his experience, underrepresented when it comes to violent crime, and therefore he wasn't too vocal on that issue. The aspect of this that's so troubling, as you mentioned, Kate, is that this chap, this poor, tragic chap, was in a dire state. He told cops he couldn't breathe. And really what cops have got to do, as you've said, even if it's a suspected murderer, if they're dying, then it's still a duty of care to preserve their well-being and health, and that's actually number one.
Yeah, but it's a total duty of care issue. It sounds like in this case the perpetrator said to them, had put the blame on the victim and said, oh, he was being racist. But I mean, it's just very hard to get your head around the idea that the decision would ever be taken to handcuff someone when you can visibly see they're bleeding and they're telling you that they can't breathe and that they're in so much pain.
And presumably this poor lad was not behaving in a violent manner at that point either.
Of course not. I mean, he's bleeding out. You can't be, can you? Wouldn't have the strength to be. I mean, I think it's interesting what your previous speaker had said there then. You know, the Sikh community is pretty well integrated in this country.
Very.
It's not known as having being a violent problem. So, you know, I don't know if Jenrick's call to ban this will get ahead of steam or not.
Yeah.
But clearly, in this instance, we had a violent man who has used it, and I think just the thing that is just impossible to get your head around is that in that moment, a man on the floor bleeding out was seen as an offender, not a victim.
Most definitely. And of course, we know how hard it is for cops and they go into these violent situations, and therefore, you know, far be it from me to dictate. I've not walked their shoes for a second. It's probably the toughest job out there to be a police officer under those circumstances. But what is critical is that they do not rush to judgment. And it would appear, it would suggest the implication is that a sort of obsessive focus on skin colour and the issue of racism is almost foremost in the minds of these cops rather than their main duty, which is duty of care to the public.
Yeah, I just think that should always be a secondary consideration. So if you're turning up to an incident and someone is bleeding out, or if there's been a violent some kind of violence occurring, your first instinct must be to make sure those people are taken care of and your duty of care to that person, and then you can work out the facts of surrounding who did what when and any motivation afterwards.
Let's talk about the Manchester 2 if we can, which I know is a big issue for your paper and for your readers. And the reason why is because the readers of The Sun and The Sun on Sunday, and my listeners here on Talk and viewers, they just want justice. They believe in fairness. And the world has seen this footage of these individuals behaving in a violent manner, and yet no third trial. And this sticks in the craw for many people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was just critical of the cops in the previous case, but this is the total reverse of that and very shocking. So I think people would have seen those images, that footage of these police officers who are dealing with these violent men, and that woman that gets, female police officer, gets absolutely thumped in the face. I think her nose breaks.
She was hospitalised with a broken nose.
With a broken nose, exactly. So we've had 2 trials. We had a trial, and then I think that was hung, and so they retried. And both have failed to reach a verdict. So I'm not surprised that this hasn't gone for a third retrial, because as an ex-court reporter, you know, look, if you've gone to 2 trials and you're not getting a verdict, the idea now is that you're not going to put those victims through that ordeal. It doesn't look like a jury is willing to convict. But as just an ordinary punter watching those images, you would be shocked to understand why I think that didn't come out of a conviction. And clearly it just highlights the danger that police are under when they're doing their jobs, which is horrific, really. I mean, violence against police is just through the roof at the moment.
Now, we won't focus on that political event that's happening up in the northwest at the moment. There's a big discussion about it, but because of election rules and things, I want to talk about national politics. Andy Burnham would like to be the Prime Minister of this country. There are circumstances in which that could happen in the weeks ahead. But one of the things he said is that he will tear up government contracts for asylum seekers to be accommodated in migrant hotels, and it will be the duty of local authorities to accommodate illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, refugees. The issue with that is, and of course it's a popular move because the migrant hotels are something that enrage the public, the issue you've got is the alternative is homes of multiple occupation. So this is a political, for any figure, this is a difficult situation, isn't it? Well, you know, you almost wonder whether the hotels are the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, so it currently is government policy. Shabana Mahmood pursued this quite aggressively, of closing those migrant hotels. We obviously saw a lot of anger over the past few years bubbling up around them, and the cost is through the roof. You've got, they're not decent housing for people to live in long term anyway, and you've got very limited hope, chance, scope to ever integrate anyone if they're living full-time in a hotel. So I think we can kind of all agree that hotels are no place to accommodate people long-term. But there's a few things there with ripping up these contracts. I mean, look, you'd have to look at the detail, but if you immediately rip up the contracts to migrant hotels, then you're talking about trying to find housing. You're right, these are going to be HMOs. So this is a house, might be at the end of your road, which is carved up, almost bedsit-like, and you dump them in there. And the problem with HMOs, there's lots of problem with HMOs, but they are devastating for the kind of streets and communities they're placed on. So if you suddenly see a lot of HMOs springing up in, you know, what would otherwise just be normal kind of residential streets, you'll see a lot of anger from the neighbours, I think, and certainly it will depress or bring down house prices in those areas, which is a dangerous thing to do
I know.
in Britain.
And listen, The Sun on Sunday and this channel would not demonise refugees, asylum seekers, even folks who are crossed on boats, right? They're human beings. But no one wants to live next door to an undocumented person whose background we don't know. That's the point, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I also just think, you can have HMOs that aren't migrant HMOs, and they're the same point of resentment. You know, you get a lot of HMOs that are people kind of just coming straight out of prison, so they're quite transient, they're often quite chaotic. Again, there's a problem with those people settling long-term and integrating. And then with Andy Burnham's plan, I mean, I'd be interested in seeing the details, because it's funny, because Andy Burnham, obviously a Greater Manchester mayor, someone who has spoken a lot about and had to deal a lot with homelessness in his own patch. And so you need to, one way or another, you need to find a decent way of moving these people from one type of location to another if you're not going to cause a mass homelessness problem as well.
Most
so
definitely.
I think it does take more than just declaring I'm going to tear up these contracts. That's why actually the root cause of the issue is the number of illegal immigrants coming over.
Love the coverage of politics in The Sun on Sunday. The political editor is Kate Ferguson. Kate, good luck with tomorrow's paper. I'm looking forward to it. We always get our best scoops from that. Kate Ferguson, thank you. Much more to come. What about British justice and British policing? Do you still have faith in it? Your call's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:32 Talk Breakfast. Well, folks, do you still trust British policing? Do you have faith in our judiciary? John in Paul say, Mark, the police were lied to by this awful murderer. Now the police are lying to the British public about being lied to. Does this make sense? No, it does not. Let's take a call. Mandy is in Northumberland. Good morning, Mandy. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Hello. Oh, hold on.
You take your time, Mandy. I know it's busy. You see, look, it's Saturday morning. Everyone's busy, right? They're getting the kids ready for the swimming classes. Right? Some of you are doing a bit of laundry. Others are at work. It is a Saturday morning. That's why I love Talk Breakfast, because it's one of the busiest times of the week for families and for viewers and listeners. It's all going on, especially over at Mandy's house. Mandy, what is going on? What are you up to?
Hey, Mark. I've been up since the 1 o'clock. Sorry.
Now, why were you up so early this morning, Mandy?
Oh, I'm menopausal.
Oh my goodness, yeah. The change it's actually, no one really talks about it, but it's massive deal, isn't it? Really, for you, for the lovely ladies.
It is, and then I listen. I get up and I listen to you. Listen to the show all the time, and I'm like, what on earth is happening? I know. Honestly, it grinds me. It really does. the Manchester things.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's too much, isn't it? I mean, why are you angered by the Manchester 2? They're not going to face trial. Why is it upset you, Mandy?
Oh, because the bloody, it was there on video, and they've kicked in police officers, man. It's ridiculous.
Well, it is. I mean, you summed it up in a word, Mandy. Listen, my darling, you take care of yourself, because I've got loved ones that have been through the change, and it's not that easy, but you're on fine form, and I'm very glad that talk is the tonic that you need. We will speak soon, Mandy. Have a lovely Saturday. You take care of yourself, my love. Paul's in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Good morning. It's my first call to talk.
Well, look, I'm honoured, and I'm therefore going to make it very pleasant for you.
Thank you.
Listen, why have you called? What's on your mind, Paul?
Well, everybody is wondering, how to stop the boaties coming in. We are spending billions and billions and looking for third countries to send immigrants. Why are we looking abroad? We got 790 islands in the UK.
Yeah.
And I've already sent you a list of them. And in some of the islands, there's only about 4 people, 5 people living. And there's one island in a few years back, it was completely abandoned. In one island, there's 50 people. So, I mean, why can't we spend 1 billion, make some accommodation there and send them straight away there and sort the asylum there? The next day, the boats will stop coming.
Well, that's very interesting indeed. What do you make of this story of Henry Novak, Paul, bleeding to death, handcuffed by police officers because his murderer said a racist comment happened? What do you think of that?
Well, it's common sense, really. It's been happening since the Labour government's come in. It's a 2-tier system.
Yeah.
They are so scared of one religious sect, and if we don't pull our socks up in few years, we will be ruled by them. We will be the first country in Europe ruled by them.
And which group would this be?
A Muslim group.
And what would you say to others who would argue it's Islamophobic to say that we're going to be ruled by Muslims?
Well, we just need guts to sort this out. I mean, 20 years ago, did we have all these problems? No. So we need guts. The government is lower IQ than the donkeys, actually. We need somebody who has got the guts to bring back this country to where it was. Can you believe that Britain had ruled the waves once?
I know, and it's pathetic. It's pathetic what we've become. Paul, can I ask you about your background?
Yes. I'm from Bombay, India, and I came here 54 years ago to England. But this is not England anymore now. It is gone downhill. Look at the education system and all this. And locally, I stood for the Tory parties, and I lost by 250 votes the first time. And I said to the Tories, I'm quitting because you guys are corrupt. And this was 5 years ago. So I quit that, and I joined Reform, and they rejected me for Parliament, saying that your tweets are extremely powerful towards the Prime Minister of this country. And I said, well, yeah, of course they are, because that's what the people are saying. That's what we want.
And Paul, that's fascinating that you are a British man of Indian ethnicity. Yeah. And what do you think about this obsession with racism now? Everything's racist, apparently.
Well, it's the government's fault, really. It's the government's fault. They don't want to do anything. They can do plenty of things, but they just don't want to do anything.
I mean, you've got this guy bleeding to death, and the police put handcuffs on him, Paul, because the murderer alleged racist remarks. How do we fix this? Because we can all agree racism is bad, but now it feels, Paul, like a political weapon.
Well, like I said, you need guts. Whether it's...
By the way, what do you mean by cuts? Do you mean deportations or stopping immigration or what?
What I mean is, like, for example, we can carry the knives because it's for our religion purposes. Well, This is England. You can't have that. You can't have anybody carrying any knives. Anybody who's found to be carried knives should bypass the courts and go 5 years in straight away. Ask the parents and the family whose sons have been stabbed. They've got the life sentence straight away.
Paul, this was your first time calling Talk Breakfast and the channel. I would love you to do it again because you spoke incredibly well and your input was fascinating, giving you 5 stars. Paul, call me soon. Thank you for your time and have a lovely Saturday. Paul in Hertfordshire there. Quite extraordinary. Now, folks, earlier we took a voice note from Shaggy, the truck driver, who had 2 illegals in the back of his truck. They literally cut a hole in the roof of his van. He was arrested. He had to spend the night in a jail. Make it make sense. Threatened with a £26,000 fine. Welcome to Broken Britain. Here's a response from Sparks.
I have a question. If Shaggy the trucker gets fined 26 grand for bringing in 2 illegal migrants who broke into his lorry, how much are we fining the Border Force boats for bringing in 250 a pop? Sparks, Derbyshire. Just a quick thought.
Thank you for that. It's a fair point. What about Jane? Here we are.
Morning, Mark. Where is our Prime Minister? Why can't he say the names? Why can't he say these victims' names? He's very easy, like a lot of social media posts showing him taking the knee as soon as George Floyd is announced in America. That was an American convicted criminal.
Yeah.
These people are innocent British people. Where is Keir Starmer and our government?
Great question, Jane. Here's Bridget.
Good morning, Mark. Great show as always. Watching you from a warm and sunny France. Mark, as a mother of a Metropolitan Police officer, I'm absolutely sickened by the outcome of that trial in Manchester. 2 words, Mark: runaway jury. As I'm also sickened by the way the police officers dealt with that poor chap, Henry Novak, which was absolutely shocking, and they should be called out for that. That lawyer in Manchester, he has form, but let's face it, that all they can do these days is play the race card. They did it in the Novak killing, the murder, and they're also doing it here. And, it's just absolutely sickening. If that happened here in France, Mark, those 2 would be shot dead. Simple as. Anyway, have a great day. Bye for now.
Well, thank you for that, Bridget. And you're so right. On the continent, the cops, they don't take any nonsense whatsoever. Lots more to come. 9:41, Talk Breakfast.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, folks, so much to get through, but I've got some very good news. The FIFA World Cup 2026 is almost here, and thanks to Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier, our friends at TalkSport are giving you the chance to be there. Adidas are sending you and a friend to Dallas to see England versus Croatia live on June the 17th, with return flights, accommodation, spending money, tickets, and your very own Adidas official match ball, which is called Trionda. Be at England's first game in the FIFA World Cup at one of the world's best stadiums. Get that winning feeling. Here's how to enter.
Get ready for that winning feeling. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text TALK to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 1st of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. See full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Full T's and C's at win.talk.tv.
Live in the studio for Retro Rewind, it is Steve Denyer, Virgin Radio Star. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. One of my favourite parts of the whole week. Happy Saturday to you, Mark.
Well, we love having you on, as do my viewers and listeners, because we need a smile, and there's a lot to celebrate at the moment in the world of entertainment, especially the movies.
I had a great couple of guests in this week. Toy Story 5. It doesn't come out until June the 19th. Our listeners have probably seen the premiere the other night when Tom Hanks was there. Yeah. I was joined the other morning when I was doing Chris's show by Tim Allen and Joan Cusack. This is the voice of Buzz and Jessie.
Amazing.
I was very lucky to see the film last Monday. It's so good. It is so, so good. I think everyone who sees it will have a smile on their face. It's going to move the story up to 2026, where tech and devices are very much against toys. And, you know, how kids kind of operate with iPads and how the toys are being left behind. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. And those two were amazing guests, and you can check it out on our YouTube page, Virgin Radio UK.
And it's amazing to think that the first Toy Story movie was a massive experiment, because it was the first animated cartoon created on a computer rather than hand-drawn.
It took 4 years to make that first movie. And the thing is, if you watch Toy Story 5, Toy Story 1, which came out in 1995, it doesn't look that old,
No.
I mean, it was very, very ahead of its time. Obviously, technology has kind of progressed. It's a lot quicker now to make these films. But the 95 one was, you're right, it was, we'd never seen anything like that. It raised the bar, didn't it, completely?
Yeah, I remember the car chase towards the end of the movie. Just fantastic. And so, as good as ever, that fifth one, they've not dropped the ball at all.
Not at all, no. There's loads of quirky bits. There's loads of kind of going back to the original movie, flashbacks. All the stars are in it. You know, those stars, they spend 7 hours at a time in a little booth recording their bits. They really go for it. So they perfect it. The movie is perfection. It's so, so good.
Oh, and I'm glad to hear it. Well, we've got a special year to celebrate this year. We won't reveal all until the end, but give me some clues.
Okay, well, this is the year we got our first IKEA in the world. That's one clue. We've got a surprise coming up in the next few minutes, but let me take you to the 11th of June in this year. We had a general election, and this was the result. Take a look.
In she goes, a terrific crowd of people cheering away, policemen barring our entry.
Margaret Thatcher's political instincts proved correct. Her victory rested on populist Thatcherite policies. Home ownership, share culture, individual opportunity. These were the pillars of electoral success.
Yes, we weren't used to one person winning 3 elections back to back.
Third election and a storming victory as well. I seem to remember back in this year the Today newspaper. Do you remember that?
Of course I do. It was set up by a man called Eddie Shah.
That's right.
It was the first colour newspaper in the UK.
Of course it was. Completely glossy, wasn't it? We hadn't seen anything like that. The big event of this election, I don't know if you remember, was Neil Kinnock. Labour seemed to kind of stage a huge rally, a victory rally in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And it really, the backlash against that, because Neil Kinnock appeared cocky. Wasn't this the election where he went, yee-haw?
Yes.
And there was just, up until that moment, it was kind of neck and neck, I think.
Yeah.
And then it was all ruined.
Yes, because of this rally, they looked like they'd won. Yeah. And it made the public think twice.
Yeah. And it all just dissipated. But a stunning election. When we look at the royal family in this year, something this year happened that never happened before. We were talking about the trooping of the colour.
Yeah.
Now, in many years previous to this, the Queen was always seen on her black horse called Burmese. She was a kind of part of the trooping of the colour. This was the year when she decided to not use to be on the horse. She had her own kind of bespoke carriage, and that set the scene for the following years of her reign. So she was able to kind of wave to the crowds a bit more, be a bit more accessible. The horse in question that she'd been using for years and years and years just got a bit old and it needed to retire. We've all been there, haven't we, Mark?
Well, we have. I went to the Knackers Yard years ago. Meanwhile, 007.
007. So this is interesting. This is the moment in time when Roger Moore became Timothy Dalton. He only appeared in 2 Bond movies, but this was the first, and this is where the world saw him. Some say him playing Bond in this way was years ahead of his time, and it actually kind of influenced Daniel Craig's performance years later. But this is the trailer. Take a look at this.
The name that means excitement is back. Bond. James Bond.
That girl must be very talented.
Shoot up.
Believe me, my interest in her is purely professional.
What is this?
I've had a few optional extras installed.
Wherever he goes, adventure follows.
Now, Timothy Dalton is a very respected and experienced actor. He's played Shakespearean roles, all the rest of it. Why is his stint as 007 not more affectionately remembered?
There was a lot going on in the background. They wanted Pierce Brosnan. Right, and eventually they got Pierce Brosnan, but because of work that he was doing at the time, he wasn't available.
Remington Steele.
Yes, exactly. And I think Timothy Dalton was kind of like a shoe-in, really. I mean, he did 2 films. So he did this one and the next one in 1989. I think it was jarring because Roger Moore was kind of a comedy Bond, a little bit camp, bit silly. And then you saw this kind of very darker Bond that, as I say, years later, I think Daniel Craig kind of copied the vibe of Timothy Dalton. But this movie, The Living Daylights, came straight from one of Fleming's short stories that had nothing to do with the story in question. It was all about the Aston Martin car. That car could do everything. And it was filmed in Austria. The car became a snowplow. As a little boy watching that car, I thought, I think I even got one for Christmas, like a miniature version of it. But that was the big Bond movie of this year, one of the biggest films of the year. Who did the soundtrack?
Oh, Madonna, was it?
Aha,
Take On Me.
Daylights.
Well, I tell you what, speaking of music, what a year for music.
Let me take you back to November the 14th in this year, which I nearly gave away then, but I edited myself.
You see, you've got the hang of this.
The top 3 in the charts, the UK charts, it would have been Bruno Brooks back in this year.
Old friend of mine.
On the Radio 1 Top 40 chart. At number 3, Whenever You Need Somebody by Rick Astley. At number 2, George Harrison, Got My Mind Set on You. But at number 1... I doubt one of my favourite songs. I think that track and Heart and Soul are their perfect pop songs.
They really are.
Perfect pop songs. And they raised the bar. They were ahead of their game. Carol Decker from Tapau is a friend. She's been on the show many times. I know she's joined you many times. And here's a surprise. I'm delighted to say we can be joined by her live in Amsterdam right now because Carol Decker is in a hotel waiting for us to say, good morning, Carol.
Good morning. Yes, hi Mark, hi Steve. I'm in the bar of the American Hotel, which is a very famous bar with a rogues gallery of all of the pop stars and rock stars that have stayed here when they had a show. And I am still on the wall. So that was taken way back then. And if you can see the pictures,
Brilliant.
but I'm still on the wall 39 years later. So I'm really flattered.
You're in that iconic bar. Have you been to bed yet, Carol?
Oh, no, of course not. Raving. Yeah, raving and raving. But yeah, happy days, and thanks for inviting me on.
Carol, you are one of the greatest singers in the history of this country. You've had massive chart success, and the career goes on. You're still gigging hard.
We're in the middle of the Be Wonderful tour, which was the brand new album, and we've extended it, we're happy to say, due to popular demand, as they say. And one of the reasons I was here in Amsterdam was talking to a promoter I used to work with who's keen to bring the band over next year back to Holland, where we also went to #1.
Oh, that is so good. And what about beating a Beatle to the top spot? That's not bad, is it?
I beat 2. So whilst I kept George at #2 for 5 weeks while China in Your Hands was at #1, simultaneously my album Bridge of Spies was also at #1, and Paul McCartney was just underneath me at #2. So for 5 minutes I was bigger than the Beatles. There you go.
Carol, we've spoken about this lots before, and the excitement of this decade, of the 80s, when you could get into the charts, and it was a very kind of gradual rise to get to #1. I mean, it could take weeks and weeks and weeks to get there. Just describe what that was like.
Well, it was super exciting and nerve-wracking because you'd get what was called your midweek position, which you probably remember. So there was like a prediction of the charts by the Wednesday, I think, in the week before the chart rundown on the Sunday, and we'd all be frantically monitoring our progress and our competitors as well, you know, our peers and stuff. So it was really, really exciting. It seemed to be more meaty than just downloads and streaming. It just seemed to be more to it. It was very, very exciting times. I'm glad I sold my records when I did.
I always ask people who come on my show on Virgin Radio 80s about Top of the Pops, because literally 20 million people tuned in on a Thursday night at 7 p.m. We watched the same thing. We wanted to see what our artists looked like and how they performed. Can you remember, can you take me back to your very, very first Top of the Pops appearance? What was it like and how did you feel?
Well, it would have been for Heart and Soul, because that was our first international hit. And I smiled so much, my cheeks ached. I just, you know, I couldn't believe it. And the studio was fantastic. There were lots of different stages set up, and the cameras were gigantic cranes with these huge cables, and they'd whiz across the studio floor, and you'd get yelled at if you were in the way. You really had to stay where you were put. And it was a great opportunity to meet other international artists, especially when you're a young emerging artist, and it was all new to me. And I got to meet, you know, huge stars. I got to meet Paul McCartney, sat and had a cup of tea with him, which was fantastic. So just interacting, mingling with your fellow stars was amazing, and being part of that institution is a huge box to tick. Still
you are this incredible singer. How have you looked after your voice so well? Because I can't say that all of the ex-rockers sound the way they did.
Well, I wouldn't like to do much singing today. I've been enjoying myself a bit. Yeah, you just, I'm very lucky. I have a very strong voice anyway. I don't have any vibrato, which can tend to make your voice weak. I do look after myself. If I've got work coming up, I start doing lots of different warm-ups, vocal techniques. I back off my beloved rosé a little bit, go to bed early, drink loads of water. And also I do work out, and I treadmill run, because singing, particularly rock songs like I sing, is very aerobic. You have to be fit. I think people forget that. They think it's all about the voice. You've actually got to be physically fit to go around that stage and sing.
Most definitely. Steve?
One final question for you, Carol. Do you see, we've spoken about this before, but I guess you see a lot of your contemporaries again now. There's so many kind of 80s rewind weekenders, Butlins nights, festivals and stuff. What is it like meeting up with some of the people that you shared the charts with back in this year and seeing them now? Do you all get on?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think back then we would all have been a bit competitive naturally, but it's great fun to bump into my friends. And funnily enough, I was texting with Nick Kershaw last night because we put a movie on